Hello everyone. If you enjoy Reddit stories, I've launched a channel featuring heartfelt family stories. Each video highlights funny moments, touching experiences, and meaningful lessons about love and connection. Don't forget to subscribe and support the channel. The link is in the description. Now let's get back to the recap. 5,000 years ago, during the Age of Despair, humanity teetered on the brink of extinction. To save the world from collapse, four great heroes rose to face Erebos, the genesis of evil. These heroes were Archimage, the poet of the stars named Luna, the divine blacksmith named Dueno, the beastman warrior, the brave Aaron, and last but not least, the dragon, the wise king Lycines. As these heroes confronted Erebos, all four were ultimately defeated. Amidst this chaos, we see a white-haired man approaching Lycines. Lycines, gravely injured, urges the white-haired man to take the dragon heart and push forward. However, the white-haired man, resolute, tells Lycines to stop talking, declaring his intent to save him. Lycines, with a somber tone, insists it is too late for him. Handing over the dragon heart, Lycines reminds the white-haired man of their shared vow to save the world when they first met. Frustrated, the white-haired man calls Lycines a stupid lizard, but takes the dragon heart from him and absorbs its power. The white-haired man thanks Lycines, Aaron, and Dueno for standing with him. As the dragon heart merges with him, he heals from his injuries and is enveloped by a radiant dragon aura. The white-haired guy was able to recover from all his injuries, and he became cloaked in a powerful new dragon aura. As the white-haired guy moved forward and stood in front of Erebos, he declared that, no matter what it took, he would defeat Erebos. The scene revealed his name, Kyle, the hero of the beginning. Kyle then charged forward to confront Erebos. The narrative transitions to the present, where a woman is seen reading this story. The woman remarks that, thanks to the wise king Lycines' sacrifice, they were able to drive away Erebos, the genesis of evil, thus concluding the tale. The woman's name is Reina, and her husband playfully questions if she hasn't read that storybook over 100 times to Leo. Reina responds that Leo loves the book the most. It is then revealed that our boy is Reina's child. In his mind, Leo silently wishes his mother would stop reading that story, as the events from 5,000 years ago reveal that our boy was the one who defeated Erebos. Kyle had been reincarnated as our boy after 5,000 years. However, our boy feels frustrated, wondering why Kyle, the hero of the beginning, has been left out of history. The scene shifts to the Royal School of Delan, where the teacher addresses the students and informs them that they are currently living in the Age of Heroes. He explains that it has been 5,000 years since the first hero appeared in the world, and that the lower world has undergone significant changes since then. The teacher further announces that the Royal School of Delan has been chosen to host this year's Lumim entrance examination. With excitement, the instructor declares that he has no doubt some among the students possess the potential to become heroes, capable of passing the entrance exam and one day having their names written into the hero record. However, the instructor's enthusiasm is interrupted when he notices a student sleeping in class. Angered, he reprimands Leo, instructing him to pay attention, as our boy must know all of the course material. After calling Leo out for sleeping, the instructor poses a question. 5,000 years ago, what methods did one need to go through to be called a hero? Our boy then stands up and nonchalantly replies that if someone simply made a name for themselves, people would believe in them. Frustrated by Leo's response, the instructor asks if anyone else can provide a better answer. At that moment, a red-haired student raises his hand and confidently states that, in ancient times, there was no way to be acknowledged by the gods. The red-haired student continues, explaining that only the holy powers were used to select heroes in ancient times. Hearing this, the instructor beams with satisfaction and remarks that such a response is expected from Galivan, the greatest magic genius of the kingdom. The teacher adds that he has high hopes for Galivan in the upcoming Lumine entrance exam. Galivan smirks and glances at Leo. Meanwhile, our boy reflects inwardly, thinking that, back then, meeting with gods was a straightforward task. He wonders what holy methods these people are talking about and considers the hero record a miracle gifted by the gods to the lower world to honor the great heroes who faced Erebos. Yet, Leo feels frustrated, unable to understand why he is treated as though he didn't exist. Shortly after, the students rush excitedly to the window, exclaiming that they have arrived. It is the emblem of the Zerdinger clan, and among them is the famous Celia Zerdinger. An announcement then calls all students to the auditorium for a mandated assembly, as the school is being visited by the Zerdinger clan. Galavan inquires whether Leo plans to go and try to get noticed by the Zerdinger clan members. Our boy simply replies that he is going home, stating that, unlike Galavan, he has no interest in such matters. Frustrated, Galavan tells our boy that he also doesn't care, claiming he is only going to see Celia as a fellow rival. The scene then shifts to the training ground, where we see our boy training alone. Our boy reflects that part of his ability comes from diligent training, but he also acknowledges that Leo's current body is far better than the one he had in his previous life. At that moment, someone calls out to Leo and asks what our boy is thinking about so deeply. It turns out to be our boy's mother, Reina, who suddenly lunges at him with full force. However, our boy quickly blocks the strike, steps back, and asks why his mother is ambushing him out of the blue. Reina explains that it has been a while since they sparred and declares that this is Leo's final test. In an instant, Reina closes the distance and strikes at Leo with her sword, but our boy skillfully blocks her attack. Seeing this, Reina remarks that perhaps she should go a bit harder. Our boy remains silent, prompting Reina to leap back and create some distance. Confused, our boy comments that his mother seems to be trying a little too hard. Reina smiles and responds that, while he might think so, our boy has managed to block every single one of her strikes. Reina charges at Leo with full force but suddenly realizes she might be striking too hard. She worries about what might happen if Leo can't dodge in time. However, to Reina's surprise, our boy swiftly evades the strike, causing Reina to lose her balance and fall to the ground. Our boy points his sword toward his mother and asks if she is okay. Seeing this, Reina marvels at how far our boy's talent has progressed. Standing up, Reina inquires if Leo is still determined to attend Lamine, the Human Hero Academy. Among the hero academies of the 4 races that house the hero record, our boy knows Lamine is the one most likely to hold the remains of Kyle's record. Leo firmly tells his mother, of course. Reina then informs Leo that members of the Zerdinger clan are visiting Delan and will be staying at their mansion. She adds that, although she personally doesn't want to, she will ask Ziz, the Zerdinger clan's vice-patriarch, for a favor. Ziz might be willing to teach our boy the Zerdinger aura technique. With a smile, Reina pats our boy's head and states that with this, Leo should become strong enough to be admitted to Lamine next year. Hearing this, our boy thinks to himself that Leo intends to be admitted this year, not next. The scene then shifts to the palace, where Celia steps out of her carriage, wondering why her uncle chose to stay here. She considers that her uncle could have easily rented an entire hotel, as Celia wanted to focus entirely on the Lamine entrance exam. She questions why they would choose to visit such a small family. Ziz, the vice-patriarch of the Zerdinger clan, then inquires whether Celia is curious about Leo, the one who claimed he wasn't interested in the Zerdinger clan. Celia replies that if Leo is just a knight hopeful who cannot even use aura yet, our boy is probably not all that impressive. Celia remarks that she doesn't think much will come of him. The scene then shifts inside the palace, where Reina Plav, the lady of the House of Plav, and Day Plav, the patriarch, welcome Ziz Zerdinger. Ziz introduces Celia to Marquis Plav and asks Celia to introduce herself. Celia introduces herself graciously and thanks the House of Plav for hosting them for the next week. Reina steps forward and warmly states that it is nice to meet Celia. Observing Reina, Celia thinks that Reina takes after her father and uncle. Celia is shocked to notice Reina's black hair and red eyes, realizing that Reina is of Zerdinger lineage. Ziz then informs Celia that Reina Plav is her aunt. The scene shifts to a room where Ziz and Reina are seated together, talking. Ziz mentions that he recently visited the Royal School of Delan, which was chaotic with a rush of students. However, he notes that Leo appeared to have gone home because he wasn't interested. Hearing this, Reina remarks with a smile that it must have been a blow to the mighty pride of the Zerdingers. She apologizes to Ziz for any perceived disrespect in Leo's behavior, explaining that our boy doesn't seem interested in anything beyond training. Ziz then inquires about what kind of child Leo is. Reina responds that Leo possesses unbelievable talent. Curious, Ziz asks if Reina truly believes that our boy is worthy enough to inherit the flames of Zerdinger. Reina confidently replies that she isn't saying so because Leo is her son. Rather, it is because our boy is genuinely worthy. Hearing this, Ziz remarks that Reina's confidence in Leo certainly piques his interest. However, with a serious tone, Ziz states that he will need to test Leo himself. The scene then shifts to our boy facing Celia in a duel, where Celia appears to be losing, while our boy stands confidently, a smile on his face. The scene shifts to a few moments earlier, where we see Leo meditating. After meditating, aura begins to form in Leo's hands. Observing this, our boy remarks that the vessel capable of holding everything is finally complete. He reflects on why he hasn't learned aura until now. The moment Leo accepts aura into his body, the body naturally becomes specialized to match that aura, and the opportunity to accumulate mana and soul energy disappears. Our boy thinks that if, in his past life, he had been able to completely control those powers and essences, he wouldn't have left behind such disasters. In this life, our boy is determined to achieve perfect control, starting with aura. At that moment, Celia enters and remarks with a smile, "It's you, Leo, right?" She observes that Leo seems to have a decent grasp of the basics and offers to guide him in swordsmanship. Celia then asks what our boy thinks of her offer, secretly hoping to earn points with her aunt. Our boy, however, asks Celia about her identity. Celia introduces herself, proudly stating that the world calls her the Sword Princess. Hearing this, Leo replies, "Is that so? Thanks for thinking of me, but I have no interest in receiving guidance from someone of lesser skill." Angered, Celia inquires if our boy is claiming to be stronger than her. Our boy calmly replies that in a fight, Celia is probably stronger since Leo cannot use aura. However, he adds that when it comes to sparring with only swordsmanship, it's a different story. Hearing this, Celia picks up a sword and declares that if Leo is so confident in his skills, then our boy should spar with her. In her mind, Celia thinks that our boy must believe that if Leo learns aura, he will surpass her. Determined to teach him the harshness of reality, Celia proposes a wager. If she wins during her week-long stay, our boy will become her servant. With a confident smile, our boy asks what happens if he wins. Celia responds that in that case, she will become Leo's servant. Hearing this, our boy grabs a wooden sword and asks if they should start right away. Without hesitation, our boy charges at Celia with incredible speed and strikes at her, but Celia skillfully blocks the attack. In her mind, Celia acknowledges that Leo's speed isn't bad, but she believes it won't be enough. As they continue, both Leo and Celia charge at each other, but our boy leaps into the air and aims a strike at Celia with incredible force. Surprised, Celia barely manages to block Leo's strike, unable to comprehend the sheer strength behind it. She quickly retreats, creating distance, while our boy's strike lands heavily on the ground. Wasting no time, Leo charges forward with another attack. Shocked, Celia realizes she cannot dodge this one. As our boy's strike closes in, he notices Celia has activated her aura armor and questions why she is using it, reminding her that this was supposed to be a spar of purely swordsmanship. Celia manages to block Leo's strike with her aura armor, but frustrated, tells him it was just a reflex. Leo responds calmly, telling Celia that it doesn't matter because he is going to win. Celia is stunned by his confidence. Our boy then informs her that controlling aura is akin to the difference between heaven and earth and asks if they should test it. Without hesitation, our boy removes his magic bracelet. Celia is shocked as Leo instantly closes the gap between them. With a single strike, shatters her aura armor, defeating her. The scene shifts to a few moments later, where Reina is seen walking with her brother Zeus. They spot Leo, and Reina approaches him. Reina tells Leo to introduce himself to the guest who has come to visit their household. Leo introduces himself to Zeus, who shakes Leo's hand and states that he is Leo's uncle. Our boy shakes Zeus's hand and replies that it's nice to meet him. Reina then asks if our boy has met Celia yet. At that moment, soldiers are seen carrying Celia on a stretcher. Seeing this, Zeus inquires about what happened. A soldier explains the situation, and Zeus begins to wonder if our boy managed to defeat Celia with a body that hasn't even learned aura yet. Zeus then tells our boy that it is impressive that Leo was able to defeat Celia. Leo responds that Celia underestimated him. Zeus asks what the wager between them was. Leo replies that the loser would become the servant of the winner. With a smile, Leo states that Celia Zerdinger is now his maid for the next week. Zeus acknowledges the importance of keeping one's word, but reminds Leo that Celia is from the Zerdinger house, which means Leo cannot order her to perform the duties of a maid. Zeus suggests that our boy rescind the promise, and in exchange, Zeus will offer something else as a reward. However, our boy firmly tells Zeus that he refuses, leaving Zeus visibly shocked. Our boy further states that the wager was made between Leo and Celia, and as long as Celia retains the Zerdinger name, she needs to take responsibility for it. Ziz tells Leo that, despite this, he is offering to teach our boy the Zerdinger's aura breathing method. Leo responds, stating that he believes an aura breathing method offered solely to prevent a niece from being humiliated holds no value in being learned. With a serious expression, Ziz remarks that our boy has just declared he would use a direct descendant of the Zerdingers as a servant and implied that the Zerdinger aura breathing method is worthless. He asks if this is correct. Our boy confidently replies, that's correct. Ziz then asks Leo if he doesn't find such a declaration impudent. Leo calmly explains that he had no intention of insulting the Zerdingers. He further clarifies that if Sir Ziz's intention had been to reward Leo for defeating Celia by teaching the aura breathing method, then our boy would have gladly accepted. However, by framing it as a gift to mitigate Celia's loss, it implies that Sir Ziz believes Celia would not have lost to Leo had she not let her guard down. However, even if Celia had sparred against Leo in earnest, Leo is confident that he still would have won. Reina begins to smile upon hearing this. Meanwhile, Ziz thinks to himself that our boy rejected the offer because Leo didn't appreciate the way Ziz framed it. Ziz finds our boy to be an outstanding child and wonders if only a child like Leo were a Zerdinger. Ziz then calls for the soldiers and instructs them to escort Celia to the maid's quarters. The soldiers are visibly surprised by this order. Turning to Leo, Ziz adds that, in unofficial settings, Leo can always feel free to call him uncle. Our boy replies with a simple, yes, uncle, before leaving. After Leo departs, Ziz tells Reina that she had asked him to teach Leo the Zerdinger house aura breathing method. Reina confirms this with a nod. Smiling, Ziz states that he will try to convince Leo so that our boy can learn Phoenix breath. The scene then shifts to Leo's room, where we see Celia embarrassed, dressed in a maid's outfit. Introducing herself, Celia announces that she will be in charge of young Master Leo's work for the next week. With a smile, our boy tells Celia that the maid outfit suits her. Leo adds jokingly that who would have imagined Celia's usually fancy style would look so fitting in plain maid clothes. Angered, Celia tells Leo to stop talking nonsense. Our boy apologizes sincerely, explaining that he didn't mean to make her angry. He tells Celia that he has a certain friend who praises beauty excessively, and that friend's habits must have rubbed off on him. With a nostalgic smile, Leo thinks about Dueno, who once said to our boy that the beauty of the eternal is unparalleled. Dueno had vowed that if peace ever returned to the world, he would spend the rest of his life spreading beauty to everyone. Celia sighs and remarks that Leo has a cool friend who knows how to appreciate and praise beauty. She then notices a book in Leo's hand and asks what our boy is reading. In her mind, Celia assumes it might be some sort of training book. Our boy replies that he used to read this book a lot when he was young, the great hero of the beginning. Hearing this, Celia thinks to herself that she had read that storybook too when she was 5 years old. Intrigued, Celia walks over to Leo's bookshelf. Celia comments that it seems Leo has a keen interest in the great hero of the beginning, noting that even the average researcher of the great hero likely can't compare to him. Our boy replies that he was merely collecting books, and it ended up that way. Celia then observes that there are a lot of books about Kyle. Our boy explains that among all the deeds attributed to the great heroes, there are many achievements difficult to assign to any particular individual, and Leo believes those are most likely Kyle's. Celia retorts that Kyle was probably a scammer who tried to claim the accomplishments of the other great heroes. Intrigued, our boy listens as Celia elaborates, saying that's what most people believe, and she herself thinks the same. Hearing this, our boy reflects silently, realizing that's what people think about him. Leo then suggests they have breakfast and start training. Celia responds eagerly, asking if young Master Leo would allow her to join his training. In her mind, Celia thinks this is her chance to uncover the secret behind our boy's strength. Our boy warns her that it might be difficult for her to keep up and asks if she's sure she's ready. Angered, Celia confidently replies that she is Celia Zerdinger. The scene shifts to the training ground, where Celia is sitting on the ground, exhausted from training. Our boy points out to Celia that when her stamina reaches its limit, her reaction speed slows, and more gaps appear in her movements. He adds that when this happens, she leaves many openings, as she just did. Celia asks if something like this is really helpful for training. Our boy replies that it is, adding that he thinks young people these days are too weak. In his mind, Leo reflects that, compared to the past, Aura techniques have developed considerably, which is likely why people have stopped prioritizing body training. Aura allows someone to enhance their body's strength, but without a solid foundation, its potential is limited. Celia stands up and demands to know what Leo is talking about. In his mind, our boy notes that if Celia trained her body, her aura would also become stronger. Celia points her sword at Leo and angrily tells our boy not to underestimate her. She then charges at him, but with a single strike, our boy defeats her once again. Frustrated, Celia wonders why she cannot win against Leo. Our boy looks at her and comments, "It's hard, isn't it?" before handing her a bracelet. As Celia takes the bracelet, she finds it so heavy that her hands drop to the ground. Leo explains that it's a bracelet imbued with weight magic. With a smirk, our boy tells Celia that starting tomorrow, she will wear the bracelet during training. The scene then shifts to the next day, where Aziz observes Celia training nonstop. He thinks to himself that this will be a valuable experience for her. Before going to Lamine, it might be good for Celia's pride to crumble at least once. Aziz then calls for Leo, and we see Celia, exhausted, sitting on the ground. As our boy approaches his uncle, Aziz informs him that he is considering asking the patriarch to allow Leo to inherit Phoenix Breath. Leo is surprised to hear this. Phoenix Breath is the Zerdinger family's foundational aura technique, and Leo knows that only individuals recognized within the family are permitted to inherit it. Celia interjects, telling Aziz that her father will not easily agree to this. Aziz acknowledges her point and adds that this is why he has set a condition. Leo must pass the Lumine entrance examination. Surprised, Celia tells her uncle that the Lumine entrance examination involves actual combat. She further protests, pointing out that Leo cannot even use aura. Celia argues that the exam will be too dangerous for Leo. However, our boy smiles and remarks that he doesn't have any real fight experience. In this life, that is. Aziz then asks what our boy thinks about the proposal. Leo responds that if his father and mother agree, then our boy will do it. Hearing this, Aziz smiles, thinking that as expected, Leo had already planned to take this year's exam. Leo then tells Celia that since they've taken a short break, they should continue. Seeing Leo start to run, Celia quickly follows, declaring that Leo must think she wouldn't be able to keep up. The scene shifts to a week later, the day of the Lumine entrance examination. The participants are surprised to see Celia Zerdinger among them and begin to wonder about the boy standing next to her. "It's Leo." Celia asks if our boy is feeling nervous, to which he confidently replies, "Not at all." Leo then points out that Celia should fix her manner of speaking. At that moment, Galavan enters and is stunned to see our boy at the entrance exam. Galavan remarks incredulously that our boy can't even use aura, so why is Leo here? He then greets Celia, commenting that it has been a while since they last met. Galavan asks how Celia has been, but both Celia and our boy ignore him. Undeterred, Galavan reminds Celia that the last time she visited the school, he greeted her and was referred to as Deland's greatest magic genius. Celia, unimpressed, responds that she doesn't remember him at all. Then, without hesitation, Celia grabs Leo's hand and says, "Let's go." At that moment, someone calls out to Celia. She turns, surprised to see Abad Llewellyn and his younger sister, Chelsea Llewellyn, from the Llewellyn family. They greet her warmly, saying it has been a while since they last met. Our boy then inquires, who are these two? Celia explains to Leo that they are the Llewellyn siblings, descendants of the same hero lineage of the Lordran Empire and children of the prestigious Llewellyn family. Celia adds that those two will be competing on the same path as them, so she and our boy absolutely cannot lose to them, as the Zerdinger clan cannot afford to be outdone by the Llewellyn family. Our boy, however, remarks that he is from the Plav family. Celia then turns to Abad and greets him, stating that it has been a long time. Abad inquires about the person standing next to her, and Celia introduces Leo as a noble from the Plav family within the kingdom of Dalad. Hearing this, Abad dismissively remarks, "A small noble." Annoyed, Leo glares at Abad, who then departs with Chelsea, confidently declaring that the top spot will surely be his. Frustrated, Celia vows to thoroughly crush them. Moments later, the instructor arrives and announces that it seems everyone has gathered. The students look at him with surprise, and Celia is particularly shocked to see that the instructor is Albi Zarin. Intrigued, Leo asks Celia about him. Celia informs Leo that Albi is a hero listed in the hero record. Hearing this, Leo realizes that Albi is one of the heroes of this era. Our boy notices that the mana in Albi's left eye is unique and remarkable. Albi addresses the students, explaining that the types of trials will involve one-on-one combat and monster subjugation, with each participant taking turns. However, Albi declares that he finds this method tedious. He then takes out the Book of Hero Record, and as he opens it, a window appears, displaying Albi's world. Another window follows, stating, Chapter Prologue Wild Forest. A massive mana circle forms on the ground where the participants are standing. Albi announces that he hates inefficiency, so he will combine everything and proceed at once. Celia is visibly shocked to witness this, while our boy remains calm. A memory flashes back to an instructor explaining to the students that the hero record is far more than just a historical document. Its true value lies in its ability to manifest a hero's world, containing the experiences of past heroes. Moreover, by conquering a hero's world, one can inherit the power of a previous hero. Returning to the present, our boy reflects that this is almost like a hero training system. Suddenly, the participants find themselves in a forest. An announcement declares that this place is called the Wild Forest, and that the objective is simple: survive. Whether participants choose to join forces or eliminate each other, they are free to do whatever it takes. Those who wish to forfeit can break the orb they are holding and return, that's all. As some participants begin to panic, our boy observes that the forest looks familiar. He recalls that this used to be an elven forest before it was polluted by the witch queen Salatna. A few participants, frightened, break their orbs and return, while others view this as pathetic, dismissing the situation as merely an illusion. However, Leo believes they are mistaken. While this world may be drawn from the memories of the examiner, everything that happens here is real. The dangers in this place could seriously injure someone. Suddenly, a strike is launched toward our boy, but Leo anticipates it and barely manages to dodge. Looking toward the source of the attack, Leo sees Chelsea, who smirks and remarks that she's glad she gets the chance to eliminate someone from zerting her. Our boy tells Chelsea that he is a member of the Plav family. Angered, Chelsea accuses Leo of lying, pointing out that he was with Celia earlier. Using her aura, Chelsea summons a wind sickle. Seeing this, Leo notes that this spell didn't exist in the past, though the basics seem unchanged. Chelsea remarks that Leo still looks relaxed even with her standing in front of him. As Leo readies himself for Chelsea's strike, she spins her sickles and hurls one toward him with full force. However, Leo easily blocks the incoming attack with his sword. Surprised, Chelsea cannot believe that Leo managed to block her strike, especially since she didn't sense him using aura. Furthermore, she wonders if it might be the aura of a hard-to-detect artifact. With a smirk, Leo tells Chelsea that her attack was too simple and suggests they join forces instead. He explains that in this environment, the ones who survive the longest gain the most points, and as a sorceress, Chelsea needs to pass at least one test. Hearing this, Chelsea smiles and tells our boy that, unfortunately, she is a battle mage. She then begins to emit her aura, summoning a new weapon into her hands. Chelsea inquires if Leo really said her attacks were too simple. Leo confirms that she heard correctly and further explains that, for wind magic, her first attack was just too straightforward compared to its power. Hearing this, Chelsea, visibly angered, asks if Leo is trying to lecture her about magic, a direct descendant of the Llewellyn family. Frustrated, Chelsea declares that she will take Leo down with these so-called simple attacks. She then uses her wind magic, casting wind sickles and arrows toward Leo. To Chelsea's surprise, however, our boy is no longer standing in front of her. Stunned, Chelsea wonders where Leo is, unable to see him or sense a trace of mana. Suddenly, Leo closes the distance between them and strikes Chelsea head-on, defeating her. With a smile, Leo asks if he should politely request Chelsea to join forces with him. The scene then shifts to the palace, where other instructors are watching the exam on a magic screen. As the screen connects, the instructors see Chelsea tied to a log while our boy, with the smile of a classic villain, is lighting a campfire. Chelsea begins to wake up and is stunned to see where she is. Our boy inquires if she plans to cooperate with him. Chelsea firmly replies, never, stating that she doesn't need anyone other than her brother. She then tries to use her wind magic spell, but a red magic circle appears on her hand, preventing her from casting magic. Leo, with a smile, explains that it's a skill that restricts magic. In his mind, our boy acknowledges that he doesn't have much mana, so the effect won't last long. Frustrated, Chelsea declares that she can escape even without magic. Leo counters, asking if Chelsea really thinks he would allow her the time to focus on that. He then loosens the ropes slightly, and the flames start to surround Chelsea. Calmly, Leo asks again if she will cooperate with him. This time, Chelsea reluctantly agrees. Our boy tells her to swear on her family name. Frustrated, Chelsea complies, swearing on the Llewellyn family name that she will cooperate. Hearing this, our boy thinks to himself that kids are so easy to manipulate. Leo then fully loosens the ropes and catches her, smiling as he says, "Nice to meet you, the Mage of Llewellyn." The scene shifts to the instructors, who are watching the students through the magic screen. On the other hand, Albee reflects that none of the participants are meeting his standards. Observing how many are choosing to fight each other instead of focusing on the task at hand, Albee finds this approach foolish. In his opinion, the only ones getting straight to the point are Celia Zerdinger and Abad Llewellyn, and he believes the Republic's future will be bright with them. Then Albee notices Leo's performance. While he initially considers the fire stunt immature, he acknowledges that getting Chelsea Llewellyn to cooperate is enough to warrant a passing grade. Albee observes that, unlike Celia and Abad, Leo doesn't possess the same level of power or grace. However, in Albee's opinion, our boy is an unexpected dark horse. The scene shifts to the forest, where Leo is efficiently taking down monsters. Watching this, Chelsea comments that traveling with a knight certainly makes things more comfortable. She then inquires what type of aura Leo is using, noting that she hasn't detected any mana from our boy. Leo replies that he doesn't know how to use aura. Surprised, Chelsea asks how he managed to block her attack without aura. Our boy calmly explains that, as with anything, a good foundation is key, just like wind magic. Suddenly, Chelsea uses her Windbreaker spell to take down a monster that was lurking behind them. With confidence, Chelsea declares how insolent it is for Leo to speak of wind magic in front of a Llewellyn. As they continue moving forward, Leo tells Chelsea that she does have power, he will give her that, but she is using it incorrectly. Frustrated by this remark, Chelsea is about to respond when our boy interrupts, telling her to stop and wait. They come across the bodies of several monsters. Our boy observes that he has seen creatures that leave their victims like this before, and realizes he now understands the conditions required to pass this test. Suddenly, a strike comes toward Leo and Chelsea, but our boy swiftly dodges it while pulling Chelsea out of harm's way. They turn to see Galivan and his team. Galivan instructs his teammates to focus on taking down Chelsea Llewellyn first, dismissing Leo as a nobody. As the students charge together, our boy, with a single strike, takes one of them down, leaving Galivan shocked. Leo calmly tells Chelsea to watch her back. Impressed by Leo's skill, Chelsea quickly readies herself. Galivan, recovering from his surprise, orders the rest of his team to attack together. However, Leo and Chelsea, working as a team, effortlessly take them down. We then see Galivan running toward the other side of the forest after being defeated by Leo and Chelsea. Galivan thinks to himself that he can't go out like this and resolves to find another party to align with. As Galivan runs, Celia spots him and decides to head in that direction with Abad. When they arrive, both are shocked to see Leo and Chelsea fighting off other participants and monsters. Chelsea, overjoyed to see her brother, quickly hugs him, and Abad expresses relief that his sister is safe. Celia, however, questions why Leo and Chelsea are working together. Our boy explains that he suggested they cooperate, adding with a villainous smile that he convinced the stubborn girl to agree. Intrigued, Celia asks what Leo did to convince Chelsea. Before responding, Celia notes an anomaly in the forest. At that moment, our boy inquires where all the monsters have gone. Celia agrees that something is strange. Our boy theorizes that it seems as though the monsters are afraid of something. A high-tier monster must have appeared and scared off the other creatures in the forest. Hearing this, Abad nods in understanding and states that it all makes sense now. The group recalls that the hero Albee's first feat was defeating a high-tier monster. At that moment, everyone senses a surge of high-level energy coming from the other side of the forest. Our boy observes that the high-level monster has finally revealed itself. The scene then shifts to Galivan, who is frantically searching for another team. Determined to take down Leo, Galivan pushes forward. However, he suddenly slips and falls to the ground. At that moment, Galivan is stunned to see a high-level spider monster looming before him. The scene shifts to the room where all the participants have gathered after returning from the test. A few students excitedly discuss how many monsters they defeated, with some claiming 15 or more. They believe their efforts are enough to pass the exam. On the other hand, Albie announces that out of the 500 participants in total, they have all failed. One of the instructors objects, pointing out that even if that's the case, Albie must still select around 100 participants, as required by the other regions. However, only 50 students remain in the test. Albie responds that if the students don't meet his standards, he is willing to fail them all, noting that Headmaster Callian had entrusted him with the test, fully aware of his strict approach. In his mind, Albie reflects that a true hero can only emerge during difficult times. He realizes that Leo Plob must have noticed the anomaly in the forest, but wonders if our boy has what it takes to conquer this world. The scene then shifts back to the forest, where the remaining participants rush toward the source of the energy they sensed. A few students remark that it's too dark, making it difficult to see. Celia spots something and quickly alerts everyone that there is something ahead. Everyone prepares themselves as Celia uses her mana spell on her sword to illuminate what lies ahead. They are shocked to see Galivan captured by the spider. As Abad prepares to cast his spell, our boy stops him and tells Galivan to break the crystal. Following Leo's instruction, Galivan breaks the crystal and safely returns. Abad then uses his wing fan spell and strikes directly at the spider, but to everyone's astonishment, the spider regenerates instantly. Our boy recognizes the creature as the spider princess Tarantulia. One of the participants charges at the spider with a spear, but the spider defeats him with a single strike. Witnessing this, Celia casts her prominent spell, landing a direct hit on the spider. However, the spider regenerates once again, leaving Celia stunned. Abad remarks that the difference in power between knights and mages is evident, and with confidence, he uses his Raphaeli spell to strike the spider. To his surprise, the spider withstands the spell with ease. The spider counterattacks, and Abad, shocked by its speed and power, fails to dodge the strike. Chelsea quickly uses her Windbreaker spell, aiding Abad and allowing him to barely dodge the spider's strike. However, Abad still sustains a minor injury to his arm. Chelsea, concerned, asks if Abad is okay. Abad assures her that he is fine. The other participants, meanwhile, struggle to comprehend the nature of the monster, marveling at its incredible regeneration. Our boy informs everyone that this is Tarantulia, the monster princess and daughter of Salatna, who was part of Erebos' army and responsible for destroying the elf forest. Everyone is stunned to hear this revelation. Leo reflects internally, thinking about Tartaros and how the mana in Albie's left eye resembles the Fairy King's mana. He recalls that Tarantulia once ruled over the cursed wild forest, where she defeated the right-hand man of the Fairy King, who resisted her and destroyed the forest the elves lived in. Although Luna had definitely defeated Tarantulia, the Fairy King's right hand must have somehow saved her. Specifically, she possesses a source of infinite life energy, the Ring of Life. Abad confidently declares that if this monster is the key to the test, he will defeat it. Celia retorts, asking, "Says who?" Abad strikes at the spider with his spells, but the creature withstands his attacks effortlessly. Our boy then states that it's pointless to keep attacking, as the spider will just continue regenerating. The group realizes that the spider will keep regenerating until they completely run out of mana. Celia then asks Leo what he suggests they do. Our boy replies that two people need to work together to defeat it. Abad immediately refuses, declaring that he intends to be the top scorer. Leo counters, stating that if they cannot conquer the hero's world, everyone will fail. Hearing this, both Celia and Abad are left speechless. After a pause, Abad tells Leo that even if they work together, it will take time to prepare an attack capable of instantly taking down the monster. He then asks if there is anyone other than Celia and himself who can hold the monster at bay until then. The group falls silent. At that moment, our boy steps forward and declares that he will do it. A surprised Celia protests, telling Leo that it's impossible since he cannot even use aura. Our boy calmly replies that he knows but assures her that he can hold the monster off for 5 minutes. Abad skeptically asks what happens if the attack fails. With a confident smile, our boy responds that he doesn't believe it will fail. Picking up a spear, Leo states that fire and wind have always been good friends and work well together. As he stands in front of the monster, our boy reflects that this situation reminds him of the old days. As the spider monster strikes, our boy quickly moves, striking from different directions. Both Abad and Celia watch in shock, amazed by what they are witnessing. The scene shifts to a memory where an elf, fleeing from the spider monster, becomes trapped in its web. Just as the monster is about to attack the elf child, Luna uses her magic to take down the spider monster, causing a massive explosion in the forest. Moments later, Kyle arrives, asking if the elf child is okay. The scene then shifts back to the present, where our boy reflects that this is, as expected, the limit of what he can do without using aura. Leo calls out to Chelsea, instructing her to use her wind magic to send the surrounding weapons flying toward him. As the spider monster attacks again, our boy narrowly dodges its strike. Chelsea warns Leo that if he moves so quickly, he might get hurt in the process. However, our boy reassures her to not worry and to hurry up as he will handle the weapons. As Chelsea begins casting her spell, she asks which weapons Leo needs. Our boy responds that she can send any of them. Using the sound of the weapons in motion, Leo is able to identify them and easily grabs the ones he needs. In an instant, our boy wields 2 weapons and uses them to take down the spider monster's leg. As those weapons are destroyed, our boy tells Chelsea to send the next weapon. Chelsea sends a spear and a knife toward Leo, and our boy quickly grabs them, immediately engaging the spider monster again. Chelsea thinks to herself that Leo should be her age, but watching him now, he looks like the embodiment of a martial god. Abad, equally stunned, watches in disbelief at Leo's true strength. Meanwhile, our boy reflects that his senses from his past life are still intact. He resolves that if he can't stop a monster like this one, his past life comrades will surely be laughing at him from the afterlife. As another of Leo's weapons is destroyed by the spider's strike, our boy calls out to Chelsea for another weapon. Chelsea, however, informs him that it was the last one. Leo is momentarily shocked to hear this, but then Celia shouts for everyone to move aside, announcing that she has finished her preparations. Celia unleashes her final strike at the spider monster with full force, and as the attack lands, they successfully defeat the creature. A window appears stating that Albi's World Chapter Prologue, Wild Forest, has been cleared. Celia breathes a sigh of relief, glad that it's finally over, and that they managed to defeat such a high-level monster. Celia, looking at Leo, thinks to herself that she can't believe he held off such a high-level monster for 5 minutes. She tells Leo that he did a great job. Chelsea, meanwhile, excitedly shouts that Leo's performance was amazing. With enthusiasm, Chelsea states that Leo looked like a hero straight out of a story. Leo replies, "Is that so?" Chelsea nods and adds that she wants to become a battle mage. To do so, she needs to improve her close-range combat skills, which she admits are lacking. Chelsea then asks Leo if he would teach her. Hearing this, Celia comments that she really hopes Chelsea gets to experience Leo's training at least once. Chelsea, confused, doesn't understand what Celia means. Leo then picks up her ring, and our boy wonders if it's the drop ring. Suddenly, a fairy elf appears, and Leo recognizes him as Prince Sillid. Leo asks Sillid if he remembers Kyle. Sillid gives a smile before vanishing. Reflecting, Leo concludes that Sillid must have managed to become the Fairy King. He also realizes that, thanks to the treasure Albi discovered, Sillid has received the Eye of Mana. As the countdown for the testing ground return begins, a cloaked figure unexpectedly appears in front of Leo. The cloaked figure states that the reward for clearing the test is the Fairy King's pledge. Leo is shocked upon hearing this. The scene then shifts to a building where a man named Alien Bedian is introduced. He is the swordmaster of Lamine Academy and also its principal. Alien remarks that it seems the exam for the Western Territory is over. His assistant, looking concerned, mentions that the other territories still have a long way to go. She asks how many participants teacher Albi passed. Alien responds that, considering it's Albi, the number is relatively high. 40 participants passed. The assistant expresses surprise, stating that 40 participants is quite a lot. Alien explains that he had only expected about 10 to pass. The assistant then speculates that either Celia or Abad must be the top scorer. Curious, she inquires who the recommended participant is. Alien replies that it was apparently difficult to choose, but someone has been recommended as the freshman representative. The assistant is shocked to hear that Professor Albi personally recommended someone. She eagerly asks if it is Celia or Abad. Alien responds that the name is one he hasn't heard before. The scene shifts to the moment when Celia defeated the spider monster. Everyone was impressed by how Celia and Abad managed to take down such a formidable foe. However, Albi's attention was fixed solely on our boy. Then, Albi made a surprising announcement, recommending Leo Plav as the freshman representative. He further stated that the discipline would be the night division, citing Leo's talent as the reason for his choice. Returning to the present, Alien reflects on this development, remarking that he never thought Albi would speak so highly of any participant. Alien wonders what kind of student Leo Plav might be. The scene shifts to Leo taking a bath. He reflects on the moment he learned that the clear reward was the Fairy King's pledge. Our boy knows that when someone clears a living hero's world, they are not supposed to receive a reward. Yet somehow Leo alone was given one. Only our boy. As Leo contemplates this, his mother, Reyna, enters and asks if Leo knows why his mother was expelled from the house of Zerdinger. Reyna explains that while rescuing a comrade, she ended up losing the flames of Zerdinger. However, she has never once regretted her decision. She tells Leo that she wants him to use his power and talent for the right cause. With a warm smile, Reyna congratulates Leo on being accepted to Lumine Academy. The scene then shifts to the Warp Gate, where our boy arrives in Lumine City. Leo marvels at the sight of the Lumine Academy building. At that moment, Ziz approaches and asks how Leo has been over the past month. Ziz congratulates Leo on passing the entrance exam. Leo replies with a thank you and asks what brings Uncle Ziz to the city. Ziz informs Leo that the Zerdinger household has been caught in an unending debate for the past month and inquires if Leo knows why. Our boy asks if the Zerdinger patriarch has come to a consensus on the inheritance of Phoenix Breath. Ziz replies that they have, adding that although Leo's mother is no longer a member of the house, Leo is Reyna's son. Moreover, the elders were impressed that Leo passed the infamous Western exam. Ziz then hands Leo a subspace key and instructs him to open it. When Leo does, a book with blank pages appears. Ziz tells him to stain the pages with a drop of his blood. As Leo does so, the book begins to shine brightly and words start to appear on its pages. Ziz explains that only Leo will be able to read the book. He warns that learning the secret technique of the Zerdingers will not be easy, but he has a feeling that Leo will master it in no time. Ziz then congratulates Leo on becoming a member of the House of Zerdinger. The scene shifts to a building where Leo is looking around, wondering if this is the place where Celia wanted to meet. At that moment, Leo bumps into a white-haired girl who drops all her books. She quickly begins collecting them and apologizes to Leo for not paying attention to where she was going. As she gathers her books, she quickly leaves. Then Leo notices her ID on the ground. Our boy picks it up and sees that the girl's name is Chloe Mueller, a freshman at Lumine Academy. Leo proceeds to a room where Celia, clearly frustrated, inquires what took him so long. She remarks that Leo still needs a uniform, textbooks, and more, emphasizing that they have a ton of shopping to do. Our boy apologizes, explaining that he had to meet with Uncle Ziz. Hearing this, Celia asks if a decision has been made and how it went. In response, Leo releases his power and asks, "Is this how Zerdinger Phoenix Breath is used?" Reflecting internally, Leo thinks about how it took him 3 weeks just to get a feel for the secret technique. Shocked and stunned, Celia wonders who Leo truly is. The scene then shifts outside, where a massive ship awaits the students. The students are awestruck by its size. A professor arrives and introduces himself as Ina Landu, the one in charge of the freshman night class. Ina announces that they will now be departing for Lumine and instructs all the students to board the ship. As the ship begins its journey, Leo stands beside Celia. A fellow student notices them and teasingly calls Leo and Celia a couple. Carr Thomas approaches and inquires if Leo and Celia have a moment to chat. Hearing this, Celia becomes visibly annoyed. The guy introduces himself as Carr Thomas, an alchemist from the kingdom of Moira. Thomas explains that he deals in everything from potions to various goods and hands Leo his card, telling them to contact him if they need anything at school. Leo finds Thomas to be an interesting kid. He then introduces himself, stating that he is from the kingdom of Dalad. Upon hearing this, Thomas remarks that if Leo is from Dalad, it must mean our boy passed the Western Regional exam. Leo then comments on how strange the current situation feels, prompting Thomas to ask what he means. Our boy explains that everything is so peaceful that it feels uncanny. Celia interjects, stating that a warm welcome for freshmen who passed the exam isn't unusual. Thomas agrees, adding that the academy would never be rough with students before orientation. At that moment, the group senses something ominous. A massive monster suddenly appears, attacking the ship. The students panic and plead for Professor Ein's help. With a smile, Ein calmly states that all the students aboard are Lamine Academy's hero candidates. He explains that when danger arises, it is the students' responsibility to overcome it themselves. The monster is revealed to be a huge octopus-like creature, the Kraken. Upon seeing the Kraken, our boy begins to take down its legs with his sword. Leo advises Celia to remain level-headed, but Celia retorts, telling Leo to worry about himself. Just as Celia prepares to cast her fire spell, the Kraken sprays her with water, drenching her and preventing her from using her magic. Leo explains that it's a natural behavior of the Kraken. It reacts to heat with a water spray. Suddenly, one of the students is caught by the Kraken. Wasting no time, Celia and Leo charge forward, attacking the Kraken's legs and successfully rescuing the student. Meanwhile, Thomas observes the scene and reflects that such competence is expected from Celia, the top scorer of the West. However, he wonders about Leo's abilities. At that moment, one of the Kraken's arms lands near Thomas, startling him. Frustrated, he shouts at the white-haired girl to be more careful, reminding her that there are students on the boat. The white-haired girl, undeterred, continues using her ice magic against the Kraken. Recognizing the white-haired girl, our boy recalls seeing her when Leo bumped into her on the street. He watches in awe as she faces the Kraken head-on with her ice magic. The white-haired girl then turns to Thomas and says, "Why doesn't Thomas stay in the back if he can't even protect himself?" Frustrated by this remark, Thomas retorts that the strong never care if other students get caught up in the battle. Just then, another part of the Kraken's arm crashes down near Thomas, startling him once again. It turns out this was caused by Abad and Chelsea. Abad smugly tells Celia that the competition isn't over, to which Celia, equally frustrated, replies that the feeling is mutual. Chelsea, meanwhile, smiles as she glances at our boy. On the other hand, the instructor observes the situation, noting that the lake leading to Lamine Academy is teeming with monsters, and that the Kraken serves as a perfect challenge for the welcoming party. Watching the students, the instructor reflects on how the captains stand out as expected. Chen Xia from the east, Celia Zerdinger and Abad Llewellyn of the west, Chloe Mueller of the north, Walden Tyden of the south, and Duran Moira of central. The instructor acknowledges that this year's freshmen are exceptional, but the one who stands out the most is an unknown freshman, our boy Leo. The instructor notes Leo's flawless swordsmanship, observing that his movements are precise and waste no energy, as if he can predict the Kraken's actions. Impressed, the instructor thinks he'll undoubtedly see Leo soon in night studies. The scene shifts to a few moments later, as the ship arrives at Lamine Academy. The students breathe a sigh of relief, glad to have finally reached their destination. Thomas, however, is in disbelief, realizing he has used up all the potions he brought with him. The instructor steps in and informs the students that they will have to cross the lake regularly, so they should get used to it quickly. The group then moves to the grand entrance hall of the academy. The scene transitions to the Lamine Academy's Elicra training grounds, where the instructor orders the freshman students to line up according to their regions, with the top scorers standing at the front of each row. The headmaster is scheduled to address the students first. At that moment, Callian, the headmaster, steps in front of the assembled students. He addresses them with a commanding presence, stating that once again, freshmen have arrived with the hope of becoming heroes. Callian declares that he has only a few words for them. If they dream of becoming heroes, they must always put themselves on the line and surpass their limits. To emphasize his point, Callian dramatically punches the podium, shattering it, and declares that those who cannot rise to the challenge do not belong at the academy. After this intense display, Callian casually inquires whether his speech was too much. The students, stunned and confused, remain silent, unsure how to respond. After that, another instructor steps forward and announces that there will now be a speech from the freshman representative, revealing that the representative is Leo Ploff. The announcement frustrates many students, who grumble in disbelief. As the instructor calls our boy to the stage, Leo glances at Albee and wonders if Albee was the one who recommended him for this role. Leo steps onto the stage, preparing to deliver his speech, while murmurs spread among the students. They question why they've never heard of Leo Ploff before and express confusion, noting that the freshman representative is typically one of the top scorers. Duran, visibly irritated, watches Leo from the crowd. Leo begins his speech by addressing the professors and seniors, stating that the freshmen are now entering Lamine Academy as proud members of its ranks. He then thanks everyone for the opportunity to represent the freshman class. After Leo finishes his speech, the announcer thanks him and inquires about his goals as the freshman representative. Hearing this, Leo reflects inwardly, wondering if the teachers expect our boy to provoke those who might feel more qualified for the position. Meanwhile, another instructor comments that this year's freshman representative seems well-behaved, predicting that it will be a calm and uneventful entrance ceremony. Leo then boldly addresses the students, saying that if anyone wants his spot, they are welcome to come and take it. The students are left shocked and stunned by his declaration. Leo further asserts that it doesn't matter who the challengers are. The scene then shifts to the Lamine Academy dormitory, where an instructor informs the students that starting tomorrow, exploratory classes will begin and will continue for about a week. During this period, students can attend any class they wish, regardless of their desired major. Through this process, they will choose the 3 subjects they want to major in. The instructor advises the students to get to bed early, emphasizing the importance of punctuality for their first class. As the students head to their assigned rooms, Thomas and Leo discover that their rooms are next to each other. Thomas excitedly tells Leo that he's looking forward to tomorrow, wishes him good night, and says they'll see each other then. Later, as our boy lies on his bed, Leo reflects on what he hopes to find at Lamine Academy, Kyle's hero record. The scene shifts to the next day at the cafeteria, where Leo is eating alone. Thomas arrives and asks if they can eat together. Leo responds, of course. At that moment, Duran enters and confronts Leo, asking if he truly meant what he said in his speech yesterday. Duran demands clarification, clearly agitated. Leo replies that his words may have been provocative, admitting, I suppose that's true if a stranger comes and picks a fight like that. Angered, Duran asks if Leo even knows who he is, declaring himself the Central Region captain. However, both our boy and Thomas ignore Duran and continue eating their food. Furious, Duran releases his aura and kicks the table, sending the food flying into the air. Swiftly, our boy manages to catch his food unharmed and resumes eating, while Thomas also saves his meal. Leo then remarks that wasting such precious food is unforgivable, his tone calm but firm. Duran, now livid, declares that he will bring our boy down from his high horse immediately. Just as the situation is about to escalate, an instructor steps in, pointing out that one student is the Central Region captain and the other is the freshman representative. Our boy, surprised, wonders when the instructor had arrived. The instructor sternly states that fighting on the first day at Lamine Academy is unacceptable and warns both students that they must be prepared for what comes next. The scene then shifts to the exploratory class of the night department, where the students have gathered. One student points out to the instructor that it's almost time for the class to begin. Meanwhile, Celia wonders why Leo hasn't arrived yet. At that moment, Leo and Duran enter the room, both looking completely exhausted. Concerned, Celia rushes toward our boy and asks what happened. Celia quickly assumes that Leo must have been in a fight, to which Leo responds vaguely with a simple "well." The instructor addresses the group, noting that now that all the students are present, they should begin the class. Ein introduces himself as the instructor in charge of the first-year night students. As Ein speaks, Duran continues glaring at our boy. Ein informs the class about the 3 powers derived from mana, magic energy, soul energy, and aura. He explains that among these, aura is the most difficult to master. He then asks the students if they know why. Celia answers confidently, stating that it's because aura loses its mana fluidity during the conversion process. Ein nods, acknowledging that her answer is correct. Ein continues explaining to the students that, unlike magic energy and soul energy, which use mana in its natural state, aura absorbs mana and processes it to suit the body. He then asks if any student can explain how to utilize the aura accumulated within their bodies. Hearing this, Celia thinks to herself that it simply comes out with some force. However, our boy confidently answers that aura's power is utilized by burning mana. Impressed, Ein confirms that this is correct and then asks Leo if he knows what the most important factor is when burning mana. Our boy responds, stamina. Ein, visibly impressed, praises Leo and inquires if he has studied aura before. Leo replies that he hasn't. Surprised, Ein remarks that it's remarkable for someone who hasn't formally studied aura to have grasped its essence so well. Ein then suggests putting aside the theory for now and focusing on practical application. To the student's amazement, Ein suddenly lifts off the ground, demonstrating his ability to fly. He explains that this technique is called the aura step. The basic principle involves concentrating aura's power into the legs, and its potential applications are endless. After Ein's demonstration, the scene shifts to the students attempting the aura step, each striving to master this impressive technique. Most of the students were able to perform the aura step successfully. Celia then approaches Leo and teasingly offers to teach our boy how to use the aura step, on the condition that Leo calls her sister. Our boy, unfazed, replies that there's no need, as the principles of operating aura aren't that different from other techniques. Meanwhile, I notices that Duran still seems upset with Leo. Calling for the student's attention, I mentions that there was a small commotion earlier in the morning. Chelsea, surprised, doesn't understand what Professor Ein is referring to. Thomas leans over and tells her that he'll explain, emphasizing that it was no joke. Intrigued, Chelsea asks for more details. Ein then calls both our boy and Duran to step forward. Addressing Duran, Ein inquires about the reason for his apparent anger. Duran denies being angry. Hearing this, Ein responds with a challenge. If that's the case, then Duran should take it to the track. Ein announces a one-on-one running competition between Central Region Captain Duran Mora and freshman representative Leo Plav to determine the class representative. Ein further states that in this match, both Duran and Leo will be allowed to use their aura without restrictions. Shocked by the announcement, Duran looks visibly unsettled. As our boy and Duran face each other, the gathered students begin murmuring among themselves. They recall seeing Leo earlier when our boy was talking with Celia Zerdinger and speculate that he doesn't even seem capable of performing the aura step. On the other hand, they acknowledge that Duran, as the captain of the Central Region, holds a position that not just anyone can achieve. Meanwhile, the freshman representative, Leo, has yet to prove himself. Ein addresses the competitors, stating that the first to cross the finish line will be declared the winner. He also emphasizes that, regardless of the outcome, both Leo and Duran must graciously accept the result, as that is what true chivalry demands. Celia, watching from the sidelines, thinks to herself that, realistically, it's impossible for Leo to win. Yet, she can't help but feel that our boy has a way of surpassing everyone's expectations. As Professor Ein signals the start of the race, Duran immediately uses his aura to dash forward at incredible speed. Undeterred, our boy also rushes forward, determined to give it his all. As the race unfolds, Duran takes the lead and glances back, taunting our boy by declaring that he will finish first. The gathered students are impressed by Duran's incredible speed and find him very cool. In contrast, they notice that Leo is far behind, and some begin to doubt him. The students murmur among themselves, believing that Leo's appointment as the freshman representative must have been a mistake or a scam. Despite the skepticism, Chelsea cheers enthusiastically for our boy, encouraging him to do his best. Meanwhile, Duran's lead continues to grow. Thomas is astonished to see that Duran has already reached the halfway point of the track. Then, to everyone's surprise, our boy veers off toward the seating area. A shocked Celia wonders aloud where Leo is going. Suddenly, our boy channels the Phoenix powers, swiftly leaping to the top of the seating area. From there, Leo focuses all his aura energy into his legs and launches himself in a straight line toward the finish line. The sheer speed of our boy is extraordinary. In an instant, Leo not only closes the gap but overtakes Duran. With a confident smile, our boy calls out to Duran, "I'll be finishing first." Duran is left stunned as Leo crosses the finish line, securing victory. The gathered students are utterly shocked, unable to believe what they've just witnessed. Leo's unexpected triumph leaves them speechless, as our boy once again exceeds everyone's expectations. Duran was supposed to be the fastest among the first-year students, so the fact that Leo managed to beat him leaves the gathered students in disbelief. They murmur among themselves, remarking that they were certain our boy hadn't even learned the aura step. Observing closely, Celia thinks to herself that it wasn't aura step at all, it was Phoenix step. Thomas and Chelsea, on the other hand, are thrilled to see that Leo managed to win. Professor Ein reflects on the race, noting that Duran utilized his specialty, lightning aura, to significantly boost his speed. Even so, Ein is surprised by the outcome, as Duran's speed was nothing short of astonishing. However, despite being slower initially, Leo's mastery in handling aura stood out. By focusing his fire aura on his feet, our boy created a single, formidable phoenix step that propelled him to victory. In Ein's opinion, it was an ingenious application of aura manipulation. After the race, Leo approaches Duran and says, "That was a good match. If it had been a long-distance race, the result might have been different." Angered and humiliated, Duran ignores our boy and walks away. Watching this, Professor Ein thinks that among the current generation students, a true hero might finally emerge. Chelsea, impressed, enthusiastically tells our boy that his performance was amazing and that she would love to train with him. Frustrated, Thomas turns to Celia and grumbles, wondering aloud why Chelsea seems so taken with Leo and not with him. Thomas laments that Chelsea should pay attention to him too, but Celia dismissively ignores his comment. Afterward, Thomas announces that since the class is over, they should all head to the cafeteria, where he will treat everyone. Our boy, however, apologizes and declines, telling Thomas to go ahead without him, then leaves. Curious, Thomas asks where Leo is going. Our boy replies that he plans to sit in on the summoning classes. Confused, Thomas questions why a night student would be interested in summoning classes, while Celia silently wonders what our boy is up to. The scene shifts to Leo deep in thought. He reflects on something that has been bothering him. Why did the Fairy King give him the pledge as a reward? Rewards from the hero's world are typically connected to the strength of the world's owner, and the reward our boy received is tied to summoning. However, Professor Albi is a pure magician with no connection to summoning. Normally, Leo would have received a magic-related ability. Additionally, to form a contract with a fairy, one must travel to Fairyland, which makes the pledge unusable for now. As Leo ponders this mystery, a student enters the room and notices our boy. The student asks if Leo is also here to listen to the summoning classes. Turning to look, we see that the student is none other than Chen Xia, the East Captain. Xia and our boy exchange greetings. Xia remarks that she was certain Leo was a student of the Night Division, but didn't expect our boy to have an interest in summoning. Leo explains that our boy is also interested in spirits. Hearing this, Xia comments that they'll likely see each other more often. Our boy then asks Xia if she would share which spirit she has a contract with. Xia reveals her contract is with a water spirit. She then inquires if Leo could show her his spirit as well. Leo admits that he hasn't made a contract yet. Surprised, Xia offers her help, saying that if our boy ever needs guidance, she can provide advice on spirit summoning. Leo responds that he'll be counting on her assistance. Curious, our boy asks Xia how old she is. Xia replies that she's 17 years old and notes that Leo is 15, as she observed our boy talking with Celia earlier. Leo thinks to himself that Xia looks quite young, perhaps even younger than Chelsea. Xia notices Leo staring at her and teasingly asks if our boy is thinking something rude. Leo quickly denies it. Xia then changes the subject, saying she was deeply impressed by Leo's match against Duran. She adds that one of these days, Xia tells our boy that she wants him to accept her challenge one day. Leo replies confidently, "Of course." The scene then shifts to the Summoning Division exploratory class, where the gathered students have assembled. Observing the turnout, Leo remarks, "Is this all the students taking the summoning class?" Xia responds, explaining that summoning isn't a particularly popular choice. Our boy nods, saying that it makes sense, though he hadn't expected the class to be held out in the open. At that moment, a black wyvern appears, stunning the students. As they watch in awe, the instructor arrives and introduces herself, stating, "My name is Yura Marin, and it's nice to meet you, first-year students." Marin explains that she will be their summoning teacher and will guide them throughout the year. Seeing the students gathered, Marin remarks that their presence here must mean they all have some talent as summoners. The students respond affirmatively, to which Marin comments that it's good their answer is loud and clear. She then announces that they will move immediately to the practice area. Marin calls for Carlo, the associate professor for the first-year summoning class, and informs the students that they will be traveling in pairs. Marin directs the students to ride the griffins in groups of 2. As the students approach the griffins, one of them hesitantly complains to Marin, saying it's his first time handling a griffin. Angered, Marin retorts that it sounds as if the student is implying he doesn't want to participate in her lesson. Without hesitation, Marin jumps onto her griffin and sternly tells the complaining student that if he doesn't think he can do it, then he should feel free to go back. Marin then mounts her wyvern, which lets out a massive roar, startling most of the students. However, our boy remains completely unfazed. Carlos steps forward and urges the students to hurry up and follow the professor. Encouraged by his words, the students quickly begin climbing onto the griffins. A few students were able to ride the griffins with ease, finding them surprisingly gentle. On the other hand, some students struggled to mount or control the griffins. Xia then asks if she can ride with Leo. Our boy replies, of course. As the students take flight on the griffins and soar over the river, they are astonished to be allowed to ride such magnificent creatures on the very first day. This is exactly what we expected from Lamine Academy, they murmur in awe. Xia, seated on the griffin with our boy, admits she was initially worried but finds the griffin much gentler than she expected. Our boy advises her to remain cautious, reminding her that griffins are challenging summons for first-time riders to control. At that moment, Marin blows a whistle, and the griffins suddenly accelerate, becoming wild and unresponsive to their riders. The students, shocked and panicked, struggle to understand what is happening. Marin addresses them sternly, questioning whether they can truly call themselves students of Lamine Academy if they can't even handle a griffin properly. She instructs them to take control of the griffins on their own. Even Xia loses control of her griffin, gripping tightly as it veers off course. Meanwhile, our boy remains calm, assessing the situation. Our boy comes to Xia's rescue, explaining that griffins have a strong sense of pride, and trying to overpower them with brute strength will only make them act out more. As Leo leans closer to guide her, Xia begins to blush, flustered by their proximity. At that moment, our boy takes control of the griffin, calming it and charging forward confidently. Marin, observing this, is impressed. She turns to Carlo and asks if Leo is an applicant for the night major. Carlo confirms this, leaving Marin astonished by our boy's skill at riding a griffin. She inquires further, asking if Leo has a personal griffin back home. Carlo shakes his head, explaining that Leo isn't from a noble household that would own such a creature. Hearing this, Marin remarks that it's pure talent, and to her, it seems she has discovered a hidden gem. The scene shifts to the Island of Summons, the practice grounds for the summoning major. Most of the students, though barely managing to control their griffins, have successfully arrived at the island. Our boy, however, notices an orange tree nearby. Curious, Leo picks an orange. Xia inquires if something is wrong, but our boy reassures her, saying it's nothing. He then approaches the griffin and offers it the orange, which it happily eats. Marin then calls the students to gather around, signaling the start of the next lesson. Marin addresses the students, informing them that from this point onward, everyone present will be taking a practical exam. The students are taken aback, surprised to hear about an exam on the very first day. One student voices a complaint, pointing out that it's still an exploratory class, so why do they have to take an exam? Marin responds firmly, explaining that compared to the other two majors, the path of a summoner is much more demanding and requires greater effort. She asks if anyone here is unaware of this fact. Marin elaborates, saying that for summoners, merely having control over mana is insufficient. To make a contract with a spirit, students must have spirit affinity. Additionally, to command summons effectively, students need taming ability. These requirements make the number of summoner heroes far fewer than those in other disciplines. However, Marin adds that summoners who do rise to hero status achieve far more than most other heroes. She then challenges the students, asking if they came here because they aspire to become such extraordinary heroes. The students, motivated, shout in unison, "That's right." At that moment, a girl named Eliza Herjin, from the renowned Herjin family of summoner heroes in the north, steps forward. Eliza inquires about the nature of the exam. Marin replies that this island, known as the Island of Summons, will reveal everything to them. As the name suggests, the Island of Summons is teeming with summons. Marin explains that a summon serves as a weapon for summoners, and this exam will test the students' taming abilities. The instructions for the exam are simple. Students must tame a summon in the forest and bring it back. After taming and forming a contract, the summon will belong to them. The students, excited by the prospect, eagerly rush into the forest to find their summons. Eliza approaches the freshman representative and comments that she's heard rumors of our boy's victory over Duran spreading throughout the academy. She adds that she's looking forward to seeing Leo excel in the summoner class as well. Xia, surprised to see Eliza talking with Leo, watches as our boy politely replies, "I'm just doing the best I can," before walking away. Eliza, frustrated by Leo's nonchalant response, looks annoyed. Observing this, Marin smiles and thinks to herself that it seems these individuals may become key members of the first-year class. The scene then shifts to the forest, where some students have successfully made pacts with their summons, while others are still searching. Our boy ventures deeper into the forest, drawing the curiosity of the other students, who wonder why the student representative is heading into the more dangerous parts of the forest. The students agree to leave Leo alone, reasoning that if our boy fails to tame a summon and receives a 0, he will likely return to the Night Major. Confident in this assumption, they continue with their own tasks. Meanwhile, we see our boy taking out a feather and channeling his phoenix flames into it. Suddenly, something appears right behind him, catching Leo off guard and leaving him momentarily shocked. The scene then shifts to Reina, Leo's mother, who is deep in thought, wondering how her son is doing. Leo's father reassures her, telling Reina not to worry. Reina nods and replies, "Yes, what could possibly happen?" We then return to the forest, where our boy has achieved the extraordinary. Leo has successfully summoned one of the 3 great summons, a phoenix. The phoenix remarks, "So, it's just a child of Zerdinger," but adds that it caught the scent of Reina's flame. Hearing this, Leo inquires if the phoenix knows his mother. The phoenix responds, "It seems I wasn't completely wrong then. If Reina had a child, that child would indeed be about your age." The phoenix further reveals that it does know Leo's mother and owes her a great debt. The phoenix then reveals its true form, introducing itself as Farina, one of the mystical summons. As Farina formally introduces herself to our boy, Leo responds by introducing himself as well. Curious, our boy asks about Farina's connection to his mother, referencing the debt she mentioned. Farina explains that Reina once saved the life of her summoner, Ella. Shocked, our boy realizes that Farina is talking about the legendary hero Ella. Farina continues, recounting that Ella was clearing a dungeon in Siren when she lost all her comrades and found herself in grave danger. It was Reina who appeared and saved Ella. However, in the process, Reina sacrificed her blazing aura. Farina adds that if not for that event, Reina would have undoubtedly reached the ranks of the heroes. Hearing this, our boy feels a deep sadness, reflecting on his mother's sacrifice and what she had to give up. Leo tells Farina that his mother once said she never regretted what she did that day. Hearing this, Farina laughs warmly and remarks, "That sounds just like Reina, always that kind of knight." Leo then asks why Farina is at Lamine Academy. Farina, however, replies that she cannot reveal the reason but questions why Leo, a knight, is on the island of summons. Our boy explains that he is taking summoning classes. Farina is shocked by this revelation and exclaims, "This is unexpected." Then, with a playful tone, she adds, "But this is fate, Leo Plav." Farina declares that she can finally repay the debt she owes to Leo's mother, Reina. She instructs Leo to reach out his hand. When he does, an egg appears in his palm. Farina explains, "This is my child. One day, when you become a great summoner, I hope you will make a contract with it." She adds, "Though it's unfortunate for the summoner who was originally arranged to receive it." Leo, intrigued, asks if it's possible to make the contract now. Farina, taken aback, warns him, "It's far too early. Attempting this now might result in severe injury." She urges Leo to stop, but soon realizes it's too late. As Leo's unwavering determination shines through, Farina is reminded of Reina, his mother, someone who never flinched in the face of challenges, no matter how impossible they seemed. We see the phoenix aura surrounding our boy. Shortly after, Leo wakes up to find a phoenix flame burning brightly in front of him. As our boy reaches out to touch it, the flames gather around him. Leo thinks to himself that the intense heat makes it almost impossible to breathe. "So, this is what a phoenix flame is," he muses. Phoenixes are beings that regenerate endlessly, living in an eternal cycle of renewal. Feeling their pain, Leo states that he understands their suffering and resolves to share in it. At that moment, the phoenix egg begins to crack. Farina, watching closely, asks if Leo has succeeded. Our boy confidently replies, "I have." Hearing this, Farina smiles warmly and declares that Leo is truly a genius. She expresses her belief that Leo will one day become the world's greatest summoner and congratulates him on successfully forming the contract. Emerging from the cracked egg is an adorable baby phoenix. Farina introduces the child as Fiora. Then, unexpectedly, Farina takes on a human form and tells Leo that she is entrusting her child to him. Looking at Fiora, however, our boy can't help but wonder, Is this really a phoenix? It looks more like a chicken. The scene then shifts outside, where some students are proudly showing their summons to Marin. Marin, observing their progress, turns to Carlo and inquires about the time. Carlo replies that there are 5 minutes left. At that moment, Xia arrives with her bear summon, an aqua bear cub. Xia remarks that Professor Marin isn't finished yet. Marin, impressed, praises Xia for managing to tame an aqua bear cub despite being a prospective knight. As Xia and Marin continue observing, they notice a white-haired student who has summoned a shadow crow. Marin comments that a shadow crow is a summon so difficult to tame that even famous summoner families struggle with it. The white-haired student informs Professor Marin that he hasn't yet formed a contract. Marin replies that summoning the shadow crow alone is more than enough to demonstrate his potential. Next, we see Eliza, who has tamed a gorgon snake, shocking the other students. Eliza confidently states that she decided to go ahead and contract the gorgon snake since her family doesn't already have one. Marin gives Eliza excellent remarks, acknowledging her accomplishment. Carlo then informs Professor Marin that the time is up. As he glances toward the forest, he notices the last student approaching. The attention shifts to our boy, who emerges from the forest with Fiora perched on his head. The students burst into laughter, mocking Leo and assuming that the freshman representative has tamed a chicken instead of a proper summon. They sneer, speculating that Leo must have given up after realizing his incompetence in summoning. Professor Marin is left stunned as she realizes that Leo has tamed a phoenix. The scene then shifts to the academy, where Leo enters Professor Marin's office. Our boy, curious, inquires if it's true that Professor Marin was looking for him. Marin, with a smile, gestures for Leo to take a seat. Once he's seated, Marin tells Leo that this is her first time ever seeing a baby phoenix. She adds that she didn't even know a phoenix resided on the island of summons, making Leo's accomplishment all the more remarkable. A freshman contracting with a phoenix, Marin continues, is unprecedented in the Academy's history. Our boy is visibly surprised to hear this revelation. Marin's expression then turns serious as she looks at Leo and tells him, "I know about your true identity." Our boy is stunned and doesn't know how to respond, but to his surprise, Marin suddenly hugs him, calling Leo a summoning genius, an unprecedented talent. Marin expresses her admiration, saying she wants to praise what Leo has achieved. However, she cautions that the fact Leo has made a contract with a phoenix should remain a secret for now. If this is revealed, things will get chaotic, Marin warns. As the exploratory classes near their end, Marin urges our boy to choose summoning as his main major, insisting that he has the potential to become a legendary summoning hero who will be remembered for ages. The scene shifts to the academy dormitory, where Chloe is walking through the corridor. Thomas notices her and calls out, commenting that she looks tired. Chloe explains that she stayed up late reading magic books. Just then, our boy approaches and hands Chloe her ID. Seeing this, Chloe recalls the time she bumped into Leo on the street. She thanks Leo and then inquires if he plans to attend magic classes as well. Our boy replies that since it's still the exploratory period, he wants to attend as many classes as possible. Chloe is impressed, admitting that she's only interested in magic and, therefore, only attends magic classes. As they sit together, their conversation continues. Thomas tells our boy that the Ice Woman seems to be aiming for the top of the magic division. He then remarks, "Isn't it too cold here?" and decides to sit at the back of the class. However, Chloe uses her ice magic to form a barrier of ice in front of him, shocking Thomas. Chloe stands up and firmly tells Thomas to follow her to the front seats. She then drags him forward, stating that since Thomas seems interested in the magic class, she'll help him. Thomas, embarrassed, calls out to our boy for help, but Leo can't help but smile at the scene. Just then, Chelsea calls out to Leo. Our boy turns around to see both Abad and Chelsea greeting him with a cheerful hi. At that moment, the professor enters the room and introduces himself as Len, the first-year Magic Division professor at Lamine Academy. Many of the female students whisper among themselves, thinking their professor is quite handsome. Len, unfazed, addresses the class and announces that before starting today's lesson, he has a surprise for them. With a flick of his fingers, papers fly across the room and land neatly in front of each student. The students are both impressed and shocked by the display. Len then informs them that they will be taking a magic theory exam. The entire class is taken aback, surprised to be given a test on the first day of the exploratory class. Professor Lin informs the students that anyone who fails to meet a certain standard will not be allowed to attend his classes. The students feel frustrated upon hearing this, but Lin continues, stating that as Lumin's students, meeting such expectations should be second nature. He adds that once they finish the exam, they should hand their papers to his assistant, Anna. Anna reiterates the instructions, reminding the students to submit their exams after completing them. As our boy reads through the exam, he is shocked and wonders if this is truly the current trend in magic. Leo finds the formulas overly complex and struggles to understand them. Meanwhile, the other students begin their exams and soon realize the questions are much easier than they expected. Relaxed, they start exchanging answers after finishing their tests. On the other hand, our boy has only managed to solve one question. Leo reflects that he should have learned more about modern magic before coming here. Feeling disheartened, our boy submits his paper to Anna. As Leo leaves the classroom, he resolves to study magic on his own. He reflects on how much magic has evolved over the past 100 years. What once required a perfect understanding of intricate principles can now be performed simply by memorizing activation conditions. However, this development in magic has led to a decline in the overall skill level of magicians. As Professor Lin begins grading the papers, he starts failing students on the spot. To demonstrate his point, Lin uses his magic to cover the entire room in a brilliant display. This, Professor Lin announces, is the essence of the magic I created from start to finish. The students are awestruck, impressed by the originality and complexity of his work. Lin continues, explaining that if they aspire to become magicians capable of innovating and creating their own magic, this test was designed to challenge them to think beyond memorization. Lin elaborates that the test consisted of 49 questions, each worth 1 point and based on basic memorization, and a final question worth 51 points, designed to test a student's understanding of the true essence of magic. He expresses his hope that everyone in the class will one day become magicians capable of solving such problems. Hearing this, Chelsea exclaims, "No wonder. That was the only question I couldn't solve." She wonders if Leo gave up as well, as she had hoped to attend magic classes with our boy. At that moment, Anna informs Professor Lin that a student has solved the 50th question. Lin is visibly shocked by the news. A moment later, his shock gives way to a loud, booming laugh, as if he's delighted by the unexpected revelation. Professor Lin announces to the class that, for the first time in history, the student has achieved a perfect score on his exam. Smiling, he asks the student to stand and reveal themselves. However, Anna interrupts, clarifying that it wasn't a perfect score. Surprised, Professor Lin speculates, perhaps some students missed a few questions because they spent too much time on the final one. That's unfortunate, but also a sign of good effort. Anna shakes her head and adds, that's not it. The student only solved the last question. Shocked, Professor Lin demands to know the student's name. Anna replies, Leo Plov. Lin immediately calls for Leo to stand, but both Chloe and Thomas look around, confused, realizing Leo isn't in the classroom. They wonder aloud where our boy might be. Chelsea then informs the professor, student Leo left after finishing the test. It is revealed that Leo scored 51 points by answering only the last question correctly, stunning everyone. The scene shifts outdoors, where Celia bursts into laughter upon hearing the news. She can't help but joke about how Leo left after solving just one question in the magic exam, and also managed to tame what appears to be a chicken in the summoning class. Smirking, Celia remarks, does Leo even realize our boy might be doing something completely wrong? Celia informs Leo that if our boy is a knight major, he should focus on improving his swordsmanship. In response, our boy inquires if Celia would like to join him for some stamina training. Hearing this, Celia falls silent, unsure how to respond. At that moment, Professor Lin suddenly appears and remarks, so Leo is a knight major, and also the one who made fun of my class. Both Celia and Leo are shocked to see Professor Lin there. The professor then asks Leo why he left after solving just one question. Were they so easy that you thought they weren't worth answering? Leo quickly explains, it seems there's a misunderstanding. I didn't think I'd pass the test. Our boy further clarifies, every question except the last one was too difficult for me, so I couldn't solve any of them. Professor Lin is stunned by this revelation. Leo continues, explaining that he studies magic on his own by reading old magic books, which is why he isn't familiar with modern magical concepts. Hearing this, Professor Lin unexpectedly picks Leo up in the air and declares, "Follow me for a moment." Then we see Professor Lin dragging our boy with him. Observing this, Celia wonders, is that Lamine Academy's professor of magical theory? At that moment, Anna comes running and asks Celia if she has seen Professor Lin. Celia responds that Professor Lin was here just moments ago, but suddenly grabbed Leo and dragged him away. Hearing this, Anna rushes off to find Professor Lin, wondering what the professor is planning this time. The scene shifts to the classroom, where Professor Lin writes a few questions on the board and instructs our boy to solve them. As Professor Lin observes, he thinks to himself, if Leo didn't solve the final question purely by luck, then he must already have his own established magic system in mind. Excited by the prospect, Professor Lin eagerly waits to see what Leo can do. After a while, our boy informs Professor Lin that he has solved all the problems. Shocked, the professor asks if Leo solved all the questions mentally. Our boy replies with a simple yes. Hearing this, Professor Lin is overjoyed. The scene then shifts to the corridor, where Professor Albee is walking. He notices Professor Lin running toward him. Spotting Lin, Albee quickly begins walking in the opposite direction, but before he can escape, Professor Lin catches up, grabs him, and thanks him profusely. Professor Albee replies that this isn't the first time he's seen Professor Lin acting out, but today Lin is going too far. We see Albee using his magic to move Lin away from him. Undeterred, Professor Lin exclaims that Leo Plov, the student Albee recommended as the freshman class representative, is a genius. Hearing this, a confused Albee asks, "Isn't Leo a knight?" Professor Lin responds passionately, stating that Leo must become a sorcerer at all costs, and that he won't let Leo's talent go to waste wielding metal sticks. At that moment, Albee releases his magic, causing Lin to start falling to the ground. However, Anna rushes in just in time to save Professor Lin from hitting the floor. Lin thanks Anna for her help, but an angered and frustrated Anna tells him they need to return to class. At that moment, our boy comes through the corridor and sees Professor Albee. The two exchange glances before the scene shifts to 1 week later. It is now the end of the temporary classes, and we see Leo lying down and reading a book about how Kyle, the hero of beginnings, is a fraud. The scene then transitions to Principal Kalian's office. 3 teachers, Professor Marin, Professor Ein, and Professor Lin, rush into Principal Kalian's office, exclaiming that this is unbelievable. Professor Ein presents a form to Kalian, showing that Leo has passed the trial for all 3 major disciplines: knights, sorcery, and summoning. Professors Marin and Lin immediately start arguing, each insisting that Leo should join their department. Meanwhile, Professor Ein tells Principal Kalian that Leo must join the knights and devote himself to a single major. Seeing the commotion, Principal Kalian begins to laugh and remarks that this situation reminds him of a fictional hero. This surprises the 3 professors. Kalian elaborates, stating that he is referring to the 5th grade hero, also known as the hero of the beginning, Kyle, the only master of all classes in history. The scene then shifts to the training grounds, where we see Chelsea and Celia running on the track. Watching them, Thomas asks why the 2 are training on a weekend. Our boy explains that Chelsea asked Leo to train her. Thomas then inquires why they're running and where their weapons are. Our boy replies that there's something more important than weapons: stamina. Celia agrees wholeheartedly. Chelsea tells Thomas that stamina is the most important aspect of being a battle mage, which is why she and Celia were jogging. Frustrated, Chelsea tells Thomas to move aside, and as she sits down, she smiles and remarks how nice it is to jog on a weekend. She adds that she's missed this and expresses her desire to run with Leo. Hearing this, Celia is shocked and almost spits out her water while drinking. Seeing her reaction, our boy tells Celia that he was planning to run with her anyway since she needs proper training. Celia replies that she already said she's not running with Leo. Curious, Thomas asks what's going on between Celia and Leo and why the 2 seem so close. He admits that at first, he thought they were dating. Celia clarifies that Leo is her cousin, paternal aunt's son. Both Chelsea and Thomas are shocked to hear this, and Chelsea asks if Leo is also asserting her. Celia replies, not exactly, adding that there are some family circumstances, but she brushes off the topic by saying, whatever. At that moment, our boy stands up and asks if they're ready to do this for real. Celia is stunned by his sudden determination, while Chelsea becomes visibly excited at the prospect. Thomas states that he plans to explore Lemuria City, and Celia offers to join him. However, our boy pulls Celia away for training. The scene then shifts to the class assignment day, where our boy enters Class 5. Thomas calls out to him, and Leo asks if Thomas already knew he was assigned to Class 5. Thomas smugly replies, "There's nothing I don't know." Our boy notices that Chelsea is also in Class 5. He sees her lying on her desk, completely exhausted. Seeing this, Thomas asks what kind of training Leo put her through over the weekend. Our boy casually replies, "Just the basics." Chelsea, still drained, declares that she will never train with Leo again. Meanwhile, two senior students nearby are talking about how Class 5 is known as the class of anguish. They wonder how many of the new students will still be around after the first semester, pitying the juniors. At that moment, the instructor enters and, overhearing the conversation, remarks that in their eyes, the two senior students are far more pitiful. The instructor's name is Harid Edmund, the homeroom teacher for Lamina Academy's Class 5. Harid is also known by his nickname, the Wailing Wall. After entering the classroom, Harid punishes the two senior students for their remarks. He then informs the class that this is the group for failures, those who scored the lowest among the incoming students. Harid addresses the students, stating that he is sure they've heard the rumors about him and his nickname, the Wailing Wall. He then asks if anyone knows why he chose to assign himself as the homeroom teacher for this class. Thomas responds, suggesting it might be to help the students improve their grades. Harid scoffs, remarking that Thomas's answer is typical of someone who ranked last, leaving Thomas stunned. Harid continues, asking if anyone in this inferior class understands the true duty of a Lamina Academy student. Chelsea replies that it's to capture the hero's world through practice missions. Harid acknowledges this is correct, but adds that, from what he sees, the students before him are people who would be taken down immediately upon entering the hero's world. The students are surprised to hear this. Harid goes on to state that it will be better to expel new students now, especially those who would only hold back their comrades by being taken down early. This is why Harid decided to take charge of Class 5, and the reason he is called the Wailing Wall. Spotting our boy, Harid thinks to himself that Leo is the most likely to survive. Harid then instructs the students to change into their exercise clothes and head to the drilling grounds for combat studies. The scene shifts to the training grounds, where all the Class 5 students have gathered. Professor Harid, sitting on a chair, announces that the class is meant to fix the flawed mindset students have developed since joining Lamina Academy. He then questions the students, asking what they believe will save them in real life, where lives are so easily lost. A student named Nella Carvin, a knight major with a healing attribute aura, steps forward and answers that it would be her comrades protecting her by her side. Professor Harid counters this, stating that it is their own ability that will save them. He explains that only when students hone their skills and make them shine through all kinds of danger can their abilities begin to help their comrades. Turning back to Nella, Professor Harid asks if she is confident in her ability to protect her comrades. At that moment, a student named Eliana raises her hand and confidently states that she is ready to prove herself. Hearing this, Harid replies that they shall test Eliana's capabilities as a magical knight. He instructs her to create a fireball. Eliana quickly conjures a fireball in her hand. Observing this, Harid inquires, "Is that it?" He comments that, with such a fireball, he doubts she could even take down an ant. Determined, Eliana injects more mana into her spell and successfully creates 2 fireballs, one in each hand. She then asks Harid what he thinks now. Harid acknowledges her efforts, remarking that it's impressive. Not only did she increase the number to 2 fireballs, but she also doubled their size. To further test her, Harid summons a wind spirit named Sylph and challenges Eliana to hit Sylph with her fireball spell. Sylph approaches Eliana and playfully flicks her nose. Angered, Eliana hurls her fireballs at the spirit, but Sylph easily dodges the attacks and returns to Harid's side. Harid then remarks, "What's the point of increasing the number to 2 if you can't even hit the target?" He addresses the entire class, emphasizing that what they all lack is not just power, but the ability to use their skills effectively. Professor Harid emphasizes that the students need to hone their abilities and push past their limits. The students feel disheartened hearing this, but Harid follows up by declaring that the class will not end until someone catches Sylph. He instructs the students to give everything they have. Hearing this, our boy reflects that, while Professor Harid's words are harsh, they are undeniably true. With renewed determination, Leo decides to give it a try as well. Meanwhile, Harrod observes Leo and thinks to himself, let's see if this boy is anything like the fictional hero Kyle. The scene shifts to the students attempting to capture Sylph, but no matter their efforts, Sylph effortlessly dodges their every move. At that moment, our boy uses his Phoenix Aura step and charges forward at an incredible speed towards Sylph. Chelsea, frustrated, wonders why Sylph is so fast, while exhausted Thomas questions how they are ever supposed to catch the spirit. Leo, undeterred, uses the Phoenix Aura step again, leaping into the air and positioning himself behind Sylph, who remains unaware of his presence. As Leo makes his move to capture Sylph, the spirit is startled but quickly reacts, dodging away just in time. However, Leo doesn't give up and pushes his Phoenix Aura to its limits, determined to succeed. Just as our boy is about to capture Sylph, Durand suddenly appears with lightning speed and captures Sylph right from Leo's grasp. After capturing Sylph, Durand gives our boy a look. Moments later, the homeroom professor of Lamine Academy's Class 1, named Sejin, enters, remarking that it seems Class 1 should teach Class 5 a thing or two. Hearing this, Professor Harrid responds sarcastically, "Is that so? Then perhaps Sejin would like to teach Class 5 in my stead." Frustrated by the comment, Sejin scowls. Observing the tension, Thomas remarks, "Is this the class of the two pillars of Lamine Academy?" Intrigued, our boy asks Thomas what he means by pillars. Thomas explains that the two professors, Harrid and Sejin, have worked at Lamine Academy for over 20 years. According to what Thomas has heard, Professors Anura and Lin were once apprentices under Harrid and Sejin. Impressed by this revelation, Nella asks Thomas how he knows all of this. Thomas confidently replies, "I'm quick with information after all." Chelsea, on the other hand, doesn't seem impressed by his boast. Professor Sejin then comments disdainfully, "I don't know what Professor Harrid was scheming when he decided to take charge of the failure class." But Sejin declares that he will find out soon enough. He then proposes a competition between Class 1 and Class 5, suggesting Lamine Academy's historic ball sport, Batera, as the event. Professor Harrid, intrigued, stands up and remarks, as expected from the genius Sejin, learning through actual experience is the best way. However, Professor Sejin confidently predicts that Class 1 will likely win. Harrid dismisses the concern, replying, "That doesn't matter," and invites Sejin to proceed with teaching the class. Frustrated, Sejin thinks to himself, "How is it that I keep losing the graduating class vote to Harrid?" Meanwhile, the students observing the exchange can't help but feel that Professor Sejin seems somewhat pitiful. Afterward, Sejin leaves to return to his class, and Professor Harrid addresses Class 5. He informs them that they are being given an opportunity to practice and improve their skills through this competition. Harrid announces that there will be a Batera match against Class 1. However, he adds a severe condition. If Class 5 loses, all of them will be expelled from Lamine Academy. All the students are shocked upon hearing this. The Class 5 students ask Professor Harrid if he's serious, pointing out that Class 1 has 3 captains in their ranks. Professor Harrid tells them to push even harder and surpass their limits. He adds, "Besides, what's there to worry about when the freshman representative is already in Class 5? Harrid then instructs Leo to choose 6 representatives to join him for the Batera match. In his mind, our boy reflects that this is clearly a test. However, he doesn't think Harrid is assigning him this responsibility out of dislike. Instead, Leo suspects it's because there are students in Class 5 who have already lost their spirit after just 1 week at Lamine Academy. It's easy to see why. They feel defeated and out of place. Harrid likely wants Leo to lead these disheartened students, hoping the Batera match will serve as a breakthrough to boost Class 5's morale. From Class 1, Duran and Celia step forward, while from Class 5, our boy, Thomas and Chelsea are selected. Leo notices that Chelsea and the others seem apprehensive and asks why they are scared. Chelsea explains that Leo might not know much about Batera since he's from the outskirts. She elaborates that Batera is not just a game but a combat sport and a time-honored tradition at Lamine Academy. Our boy, unimpressed, remarks, "Isn't it just a ball game?" Thomas tells Leo that Batera isn't just a ball game. It's a very dangerous one. At that moment, Celia teases Chelsea, asking why she looks so scared, or if Chelsea has already accepted her imminent defeat. Angered, Chelsea fires back, "Who's scared? Do you really think I'd ever lose to a Zerdinger?" Our boy steps in and reassures Chelsea and Thomas, telling them not to worry because their class won't lose. Celia confidently tells Leo that she will show him the results of her special training. Chloe then chimes in, declaring that she won't lose to Leo this time. Professor Sejin instructs the participants from each class to proceed to the arena. Back in Class 5, Leo asks who will join him on the team. At first, no one volunteers. Finally, Chelsea and Eliana step forward. Chelsea, determined, states that she absolutely needs to put the students of Class 1 in their place. Eliana adds that if losing means expulsion, she'll use sheer spite to win if that's what it takes, vowing to show Professor Harid what she's capable of. Soon after, Nella and another student, Tide Marcoa, step forward. Tide, a summoning department student, silently signals his readiness. Satisfied with the team, Leo turns to Thomas, who's trying to stay out of sight, and tells him, "The last spot on the team is yours." Shocked, Thomas asks, "Why me?" But Leo doesn't listen and insists he come along. With the team ready, our boy informs Professor Sejin that Class 5 is prepared. Sejin throws the ball into the air, signaling the start of the match. Both teams immediately ready themselves. Our boy and Duran leap into the air to seize the ball, but Duran manages to snatch it using his lightning aura. As Class 1 gains possession, Leo tells Tide to explain the rules of the game to him. Tide quickly summarizes, saying, "The rules of Batera are simpler than you'd think. Students infuse the ball with their aura and shoot it into the goal without using their hands or feet. The first team to score 11 points wins." Tide then calls for everyone to focus and get ready. Durant charges toward Thomas with the ball, but suddenly the ball veers and heads straight for Leo. Swiftly, Leo dodges the strike, but to everyone's surprise, the ball hits the ground and rolls directly into the goal. As the crowd erupts into cheers for Duran, Class 5 remains silent, stunned by the turn of events. Seeing his teammates' disheartened expressions, Leo begins analyzing the game and thinking of strategy. Meanwhile, Tide mutters, "It seems like Professor Harid really is planning to expel all of Class 5. Our boy asks Tide how Class 5 can gain possession of the ball. Tide explains that there are 3 ways. When the ball goes out of bounds during the opponent's turn, when Class 5 successfully catches the ball, and before Tide can finish explaining the third way, Nella shouts, warning her teammates to dodge. Shocked, Leo and Tide look back and see Eliana hit by the ball. It was Celia who threw it. Celia taunts them, saying, "What were you two whispering about over there? Shouldn't you be focusing on the game?" Tide immediately rushes to check if Eliana is injured. Then Tide explains to Leo, the student can't directly attack or block opposing players. Just now, that was the third way, when a team member is eliminated after being hit by the ball. The only way to attack an opponent is with the ball itself. Hearing this, our boy grabs the ball and thanks Tide for the explanation. Leo declares, now it's Class 5's turn. The match status updates, showing that Eliana has been eliminated. From the sidelines, Professor Sejin observes the match intently. He thinks to himself, teams with players who wield highly destructive fire attributes possess an overwhelming advantage in Batera. Among the human houses, the flames of Zerdinger are the most powerful of them all. Professor Sejin remarks that, despite knowing Celia Zerdinger was in Class 1, Professor Harid still agreed to this Batera match. Sejin adds that he can't understand what Harid is up to, but winning against Class 1 will be incredibly difficult for Class 5. Hearing this, Harid yawns, much to Sejin's frustration. Sejin demands, "Why can't you ever talk like a normal person?" Harid calmly responds, "Do you remember your first pupil? That kid from the Zerdinger house." Sejin replies, "Of course I remember. How could I forget the Empress of Batera?" Harid then reveals, the child of that very Empress is in Class 5. Sejin is visibly shocked upon hearing this. Meanwhile, the Class 5 students are disheartened, believing their chances of winning are slim and their journey is about to end. But then our boy steps forward, activating his Phoenix aura. Noticing this, Celia remarks, "It seems Leo has finally made up his mind." With newfound determination, our boy uses his Phoenix aura and strikes the ball toward Class 1's goal with full force. Chloe uses her Ice Wall spell to block our boy's strike. Though she barely manages to stop it, she smiles confidently and declares, "As long as I'm here, scoring is impossible." To Chloe's surprise, our boy suddenly appears beside her and calmly says, "It's possible. Is this what you meant?" Wasting no time, our boy leaps into the air and punches straight through Chloe's defense, scoring a point for Class 5. Surprised, Professor Sejin remarks on Leo's incredible fighting instincts, while Professor Harid can't help but laugh. The audience erupts into cheers for Class 5, and with a smile, Professor Sejin thinks to himself, this is when the real game begins. The match continues, and the score climbs to 2-1 as Celia scores another point for Class 1. Other players contribute as well, and the score eventually reaches 4-5. As the game intensifies, the score shifts to 7-6, with both teams losing several players along the way. Finally, the score stands at 9-10, with Class 5 in the lead. At this critical moment, Duran launches a powerful strike toward Class 5's goal. To everyone's surprise, Thomas leaps into the air and intercepts the ball just before it reaches the goal. Exhausted but successful, Thomas barely manages to block the shot. Smiling, he declares, "I've used up all my mana. The rest is up to you, Leo." Thomas tosses the ball toward our boy, and Chelsea and Eliana quickly step in to help Thomas off the field so he can rest. The scoreboard now shows a tied score of 10-10, and it's match point. Our boy has possession of the ball, but Class 5 faces a steep disadvantage. The opposing Class 1 has 3 of their top students on the field, while Class 5 relies solely on Leo Plov. With a determined expression, Chloe declares, "I might have lost to him in the magic theory exam, but this time I won't lose." She casts a new spell, creating multiple clones of herself to defend a goal. Meanwhile, at the front, Duran and Celia prepare to stop our boy. Leo activates another spell, enveloping himself in a green aura, and charges toward the Class 1 goal. Class 1 is stunned by his incredible speed, as Leo effortlessly passes through Celia and Duran. Shocked, Celia exclaims, "Leo isn't trying to attack, he's completely focused on scoring." Chloe, observing closely, assumes that Leo is using an illusion spell, dismissing it as shallow. Determined to locate the real Leo, she scans the field. However, to her shock, she realizes which magic Leo is actually using. Before Chloe can react, our boy scores, leaving her in disbelief. Chloe, stunned, murmurs, "The magic of the stars. I can't believe he's using it." Chloe wonders how a human could possibly use the magic of the elves. Meanwhile, the scoreboard confirms the winner, Class 5. The students erupt into cheers for Leo, and the Class 5 members are relieved that they won't be expelled. They confess to each other how terrified they were at the thought of being sent straight back home. Hearing this, Professor Sejin inquires what the Class 5 students are talking about. Professor Harid waves it off and casually says, "Don't worry, it was just for motivation." Professor Sejin then notices that Class 1 is visibly downcast after their defeat. He approaches Chloe and asks if she's angry that her team lost. Sejin reminds Chloe and the rest of Class 1, once the match is over, regardless of the result, you must salute your opponent. He continues, "You all worked well together to secure Class 1's performance. Those who cheered for their friends and those who gave their all in the arena, every one of you should stand your ground and be proud." Hearing this, the students of Class 1 brighten up, feeling encouraged. However, the moment is interrupted when Professor Harid shouts, "Hey, loser, hurry up and close things out already." Professor Sejin, visibly frustrated, clenches his fists but says nothing. Professor Sejin addresses the students, praising both Class 1 and Class 5 for their efforts. He commends Class 1 for showcasing their talent and capabilities and acknowledges Class 5 for their determination, resilience, and ability to overcome challenges despite the odds. Sejin remarks that Class 5's perseverance allowed them to understand their limits and rise to the occasion. He expresses his hope that both classes will continue to work together harmoniously while fostering healthy competition. Professor Sejin then instructs the students from both classes to shake hands. As they do, Celia tells Chelsea, "You lasted longer than I thought. Honestly, I expected you to lose sooner." Chelsea fires back, "That's what I wanted to say to you. You were tougher than I expected." Meanwhile, Thomas, smiling, says to Duran, "We won." However, Duran remains silent, gazing seriously at the field. Nearby, Chloe begins to cry. Seeing this, our boy approaches her and says, "That was an awesome match." He reassures her, "With a bit more experience, you're definitely going to become someone amazing." Chloe, wiping her tears, looks at Leo and asks, "Are you making fun of me?" Then, with renewed determination, she shakes Leo's hand and silently vows to herself, "One day, I will definitely beat you." The scene shifts to 1 month later, where the trio is sitting in the cafeteria. Thomas asks what clubs Leo and Chelsea are planning to join. Our boy replies that he's thinking of creating a club, which shocks Thomas. Chelsea immediately says that if Leo is going to make a club, she wants to join it. Thomas, curious, asks what kind of club Leo has in mind. Leo replies that it would be a hero research society, explaining that he wants to investigate more about the forgotten hero and the hero of the beginning, Kyle. Hearing this, Thomas remarks, "Isn't Kyle just some forgotten figure? He's fictional, isn't he?" Thomas then jokes, "It seems like no one's going to join your club." Hearing this, Chelsea begins to wonder if it means she would be alone with Leo in the club. Blushing slightly, she confidently declares, "I'll join Leo's club." At that moment, students begin gathering near the window, excitedly murmuring they're back. Seeing the commotion, our boy asks what everyone is talking about. Thomas explains, "Today, the fifth-year students return after clearing a hero dungeon." Through the window, they see 3 fifth-year students entering the academy, their presence commanding attention. Fragments of the hero record, scattered across the world, occasionally run amok and generate dungeons known as hero dungeons. Our boy reflects on how the seniors of Lamine Academy are tasked with clearing these dungeons and retrieving the fragments of a hero record. He thinks to himself that these missions often take at least 2 weeks, sometimes over a month, and wonders if his mother went through similar experiences. Chelsea is visibly impressed by the top students of Lamine Academy. Thomas points out the muscular Easterner at the front, identifying him as Senior Lee Jimua. He then gestures to the southern woman beside Lee, introducing her as Senior Torua Yin. Lastly, he mentions the figure in the hoodie, Senior Olta. Thomas then notes that someone is missing, the man who stands at the pinnacle of Lamine Academy, the student council president, Reese. At that moment, someone suddenly grabs Leo and pulls him away. Chelsea and Thomas, realizing Leo is no longer with them, are left shocked and wondering where he went. The scene shifts outside, where our boy asks Celia what just happened. Celia tells Leo that there's somewhere he needs to go with her. Leo asks where, and Celia replies, "To the city. The student council president wants to meet with you." Leo, being himself, asks why the student council president is looking for him. Celia sighs and remarks that Leo really doesn't take much interest in school-related matters, adding that he'll find out once they get there. The scene shifts to a restaurant where both Celia and Leo are seated, waiting for Reese. Celia wonders why Reese asked to meet in such a place. As soon as Celia spots Reese, she quickly rushes to hug him, calling him brother. Reese is Celia's older brother. Reese greets Lee, saying it's nice to finally meet him. He mentions that he's heard a lot about our boy, and how Leo is aiming for all classes. Reese, who is from the Night Division, is also the Lamine Academy Student Council President. As they sit together and begin eating, Reese notices something and asks if something is wrong. Celia replies that it's her first time eating food like this, and she finds it absolutely delicious. Reese laughs and explains that this is a restaurant he had always wanted to bring Celia to once she joined Lamine Academy. Reese then turns to our boy and states that Leo is his aunt's son. Surprised, Leo asks if Reese ever met his mother. Reese nods, replying that he saw her a few times when he was younger. He adds that Aunt Raina was quite famous during her school days. Leo looks surprised upon hearing this. Reese tells our boy that Aunt Raina was someone who accomplished many things that became legendary. For example, Reese recalls how Aunt Raina once declared that the desserts in the dormitory restaurant were horrible. In response, she rallied all the students and stormed the principal's office. Celia, astonished, exclaims that Aunt Raina was the protagonist of that famous incident. Reese chuckles and confirms it. Watching Reese and Celia chat so casually, our boy thinks to himself that, as expected, Reese is worthy of being called the strongest in Lamine. Leo feels it's only a matter of time before Reese becomes a hero. Reese then suggests they go and have some dessert. Celia happily agrees, and Reese tells Celia and Leo to head out first while he takes care of the bill. As our boy leaves, Reese is shocked to see that the artifact that he found in the dungeon is starting to shine. The scene shifts to the classroom, where Eliana raises her hand to ask Professor Harrid a question. Harrid inquires what it is. Eliana asks why their class hasn't chosen a class representative yet, as she heard that all the other classes have already decided. Harrid, realizing he had forgotten about it, casually replies, "That's right, I did." Without hesitation, he appoints our boy as the class representative. Eliana, visibly disheartened, lowers her gaze, feeling disappointed. Tide suggests to Professor Harid that they should choose the class representative democratically through a vote. However, Professor Harid ignores the suggestion and places a large stack of papers on the desk. He then instructs the newly appointed class representative to sort and organize them. Seeing this, Eliana sits quietly, her disappointment evident. Suddenly, an announcement echoes through the academy, stating that the Hero Studies joint class will begin shortly and all first-year students should prepare to head to the auditorium. Hearing this, Leo asks Professor Harid if they should prepare to leave. Harid snaps his fingers and remarks, as expected of the class representative. All the students gather in the auditorium. There, Leo and Thomas spot Chloe, and both notice she looks exhausted. Concerned, Chloe asks Thomas if he has any fatigue recovery potions left. Thomas hands her 2 potions, saying they're the only ones he has at the moment. Our boy then gently tells Chloe, the year just started. Aren't you pushing yourself too hard? Chloe drinks one of the potions and with a dismissive wave replies, it's fine, before walking away. Thomas finds Chloe impressive, noting that she's the top student in magic theory. Chelsea, however, guesses that Chloe has no choice but to feel anxious. She points out that the moment Leo catches up with the latest magic trends, our boy might even surpass Chloe in the magic theory exam. Thomas, puzzled, asks, what's wrong with being second? Chelsea sighs and replies, you're really an idiot, aren't you? She explains that Chloe is a tower sorcerer, while Chelsea herself is a battle mage. Chelsea doesn't mind falling behind a bit in theory because her focus is on combat, but for tower sorcerers, magic investigation and research are the foundation of their craft, and Chloe's pride is on the line. Chelsea then asks incredulously, are you even a real sorcerer, Thomas? With confidence, Thomas replies, of course I am. I use magic to live. Subsistence magic is my pride. Despite his answer, Chelsea looks unimpressed. The scene shifts to the principal's office, where Principal Adrian remarks with intrigue, the damaged hero's page has reacted. The scene shifts to a page in a book, and the principal inquires of Reese whether it's true that this hero's page reacted. Reese confirms, explaining, yes, it's a page so damaged that it shouldn't have reacted, but it definitely did. And there were no relics nearby either. The principal asks, did the page react again after that? Reese replies, no, it didn't. Hearing this, the principal states that he will look into the matter further. He then tells Reese to take some rest, acknowledging that Reese has just returned. You've done a good job, the principal adds. The principal then calls for his assistant, Elena, and instructs her to take the page to the auditorium, specifically to the Hall of Beginnings, as the first-year joint class is about to start. Afterward, the principal reflects to himself, there are times when fragments as small as this react. If someone recorded in the hero record comes into contact with it, it will activate. The scene shifts to the auditorium, where all the first-year students have gathered. The teacher, Arshiana Near, tells the students to be quiet, but they continue chatting among themselves, ignoring her. Angered, Professor Arshiana releases her aura, commanding silence. Instantly, the students stop talking, subdued by her presence. Shocked and scared, the students instantly fall silent. Seeing this, Professor Arshiana calms herself and, with a smile, thanks the students for their cooperation. One of the students mutters, no matter how many times I see her, she's just too scary. Meanwhile, our boy reflects that Professor Arshiana is a spiritualist, a rare profession, even in Leo's previous life. Spiritualists were incredibly hard to come by. Professor Arshiana begins the first-year joint hero studies class, explaining, after the appearance of the hero record, the reason why hero clans emerged became clear, to open a hero's world. An object deeply connected to or related to that hero is required. This is why it is often easier for a hero's descendants to access a hero's world. Lumine Academy, which preserves the hero records, shares a deep relationship with these families. The professor pauses and adds, you could say it's like the relationship between a key and a treasure chest. Our boy finds the lecture intriguing. Professor Arshiana then asks the students, does everyone now understand why hero studies is important? The students reply in unison, yes. Professor Arshiana further elaborates, hero studies is vital because it provides clues for clearing a hero's world and helps us learn more about the heroes themselves. As freshmen progress to their senior year, they will choose a hero to inherit their strength from and attempt to clear that hero's pages. At that moment, Elena enters the room and hands Professor Archiana a hero's page fragment. Professor Archiana informs the students that this is a fragment of the hero record recently retrieved by Lamine Academy's fifth-year students. The students are shocked upon hearing this. When Professor Archiana opens the box containing the fragment, the students grow excited, eagerly anticipating a glimpse of a hero's record fragment. However, to their dismay, the professor closes the box without showing it to them, leaving the students feeling disappointed. Professor Archiana then says, before experiencing the hero record fragment, why don't we discuss your aspirations as heroes? She invites the students to share their goals. Celia stands up first and declares, I want to become a knight who surpasses those of my family's previous generations. Professor Archiana responds with a smile. That's a great goal. Next, Chloe stands and says, I want to write a spell book filled entirely with original spells. The professor nods approvingly. Thomas then stands and states, I want to be someone who can help heroes. Finally, our boy stands and boldly declares, Leo's goal is to completely annihilate Orobos. Everyone is shocked upon hearing Leo's declaration. Professor Archiana remarks, that's an amazing goal. A few students whisper among themselves, wondering if Leo is dreaming too big. One remarks, it seems the dream of the freshman representative is on another level entirely. Meanwhile, Sejin asks Harid what he thinks about Leo's statement. Harid replies, it's chilling because Leo isn't the type to speak in vain. In his mind, Professor Harid reflects that it has been millennia since Orobos was divided into several pieces and sealed. Yet, despite this, Orobos has been resurrected many times throughout history. Disaster followed even the resurrection of just one fragment. However, Leo's dream is to eradicate Orobos completely, a goal of immense scale. Professor Archiana then shifts the focus back to the class, announcing, today, we will be reading the hero's record page retrieved from the dungeon. After each class guesses which hero's page it is, we'll discuss how to clear a hero's world. However, just in case anything unexpected occurs, the class professors will also be observing. Some students feel nervous, while others are excited at the chance to touch a fragment of a hero's record. Professor Archiana continues, first, the representatives of each class will step forward. She calls out the names, Celia, Leo, Abad, and Xia. As the four representatives gather, anticipation fills the room. Professor Archiana explains that 2 hero records were recovered this time. She adds, for today's lesson, we'll only be using 1. She then reveals the 2 fragments, explaining that one is a small piece she brought specifically to show the students that fragments like it also exist. As the lesson proceeds, our boy steps forward and reaches out to touch one of the hero record fragments. The moment Leo's hand makes contact, the fragment begins to shine brightly. Suddenly, a glowing window appears with the words Hero Record Open. Before anyone can react, all the students and teachers are instantly teleported inside the hero's record. Everyone is left stunned, trying to process what just happened. Professor Harid urges everyone to brace themselves, declaring, this is a hero dungeon. Professor Sejin points ahead, stating, I see the fortress wall over there. Our boy reflects silently, thinking to himself that in the age of catastrophe, this was the last line of defense in the final city, the walls of Gardaslan. Leo considers, if this is the right time, then Kyle's unfulfilled wish truly was a foolish one. At that moment, a woman steps forward, boldly declaring, we will save the world. Leo immediately recognizes her. It's Lysinus. His thoughts race as he recalls her significance, but before he can process further, Lysinus turns and smiles directly at him. Suddenly, all the students and teachers are teleported back to the auditorium. Xia, confused, asks the professors what just happened. Professor Harid addresses the students, instructing them to remain calm and announcing that classes are suspended for the time being. He directs everyone to exit the auditorium in an orderly manner. As the students leave, our boy thinks to himself, this is Kyle's page, which means this is my record. Professor Harid, observing Leo intently, seems to suspect something. The scene shifts to the classroom, where Leo tells everyone, I saw the King of Wisdom. The room falls silent as everyone stares at him, shocked. Chelsea breaks the silence, exclaiming, that's amazing. This is a historic event, so that's Lysinus's hero record. Frustrated, Eliana grumbles that she should have been the class representative, lamenting how she missed such a huge opportunity. Thomas, trying to tease her, makes a sly comment. Angered, Eliana moves to punch Thomas, but before she can, Professor Harrid enters the room. With his usual stern demeanor, Professor Harrid announces, "I came to scold the noisiest class, and here it is." Fixing Eliana and Thomas with a serious glare, he gives them a choice, self-study or expulsion. Hearing this, both Eliana and Thomas immediately quiet down and sit in their seats. Meanwhile, our boy reflects silently, wondering why Kyle's hero record is the only one that's completely destroyed. It was in such a state that even Leo couldn't initially recognize whose world it was supposed to represent. It's almost as if someone intentionally destroyed Kyle's hero record, Leo thinks. He further considers that a hero record is an artifact that literally inherits a hero's power. If someone wanted to prevent the birth of a new hero, that someone must be Erebos. Determined, Leo decides he needs to investigate why Kyle's hero record was divided in the first place. The scene then shifts to 1 month later, during magic theory class. Professor Lin addresses the students, explaining, original magic, otherwise known as unique magic, will be the focus of your midterm practical exam assignment. Original magic is a type of magic that distinctly showcases a magician's individuality. In today's era, where activation techniques have become mainstream, magicians rarely strive to create original spells. However, Professor Lin emphasizes that original magic could serve as a secret technique, invaluable for protecting oneself in critical situations. He continues, even star magic, which every elf learns, is merely a minor imitation of original magic. In fact, only one person in history has ever wielded true star magic. Its creator, Luna, the founder of Nebula. Hearing this, Chloe recalls the match where our boy used star magic. Leo notices Chloe holding a book enveloped with aura. Before he can say anything, Chloe quickly hides the book. It's a grimoire, our boy thinks to himself, curious about her actions. Professor Lin wraps up the lecture, saying, "I'm sure everyone is looking forward to discovering their unique magic." That's all for today's class. As the students begin leaving, our boy stops Chloe and asks, "Would you like to have lunch together?" Despite his casual tone, Leo wonders why Chloe hid the grimoire earlier. Chloe, avoiding eye contact, replies, "I don't have time for that," before walking away. Chloe is determined to defeat Leo in the upcoming practical exam. At that moment, Thomas approaches and asks, "Leo, are you really daring enough to challenge the top spot in the Ice Queen's magic studies?" Chloe, with unwavering resolve, replies, "I may have already lost to Leo in terms of technique, but when it comes to magic studies, I can't let anyone surpass me. This time, no matter what, I'll defeat him and claim victory." Leo responds with a grin. "Wouldn't it be disrespectful to back out now?" He adds, "Let's both prepare well," and extends his hand. Chloe nods, and the two shake hands. The scene then shifts to the Tower of Heroes, where our boy is wandering deep in thought. Somewhere around here is Lamin's forbidden library, he thinks. If I can get there, I might find some clues about Kyle's lost hero record. As Leo ascends the stairs, Tora Yin appears and greets him. "I've heard a lot about you from Professor Lin," she says. Our boy greets her politely. Tora then inquires, "What business does a first-year student have at the Tower of Heroes?" Leo replies that he is here to meet the student council president. Tora responds, "If you join the magic department, you'll have even more opportunities." Our boy replies, "I'm already taking classes in the Department of Magic." Hearing this, Tora lets Leo pass but adds, "I'd like you to declare your major as the Department of Magic before the semester ends." With a smile, she asks, "Have I made myself clear?" Leo smiles politely and moves forward. He reaches the elevator, but quickly realizes it isn't working. Confused, he examines it further. At that moment, Lee Jemua appears and informs him, "You need to channel mana into it to activate it." Lee then looks at Leo and says, "So, you're the rumored first-year class representative." Leo greets Jemua, who asks what brings him to the Hero's Tower. Leo explains that he needs to meet the student council president. Jemua remarks on Leo's calm demeanor, noting that, despite being a freshman, he doesn't seem nervous in the slightest. Impressed by Leo's bravery in heading to the student council president's office alone, Jemua suggests that Leo should consider joining the night department. Leo responds with a half-hearted agreement. The scene shifts to the student council office, where Leo knocks on the door and introduces himself to Reese, asking if he may enter. Reese invites him in. As Leo steps inside, Reese inquires about the reason for his visit. Leo states that he seeks access to the forbidden archive. Hearing this, Reese adopts a serious expression and remarks that he knows Leo isn't one to joke about such matters. Reese explains that there are only two ways for a regular student to access the forbidden archive. The first way, Reese says, is by clearing a hero dungeon. It's customary for the one who clears the dungeon to return the retrieved page to the hero record. Intrigued, Leo asks about the second way. Smiling, Reese responds, "If you join the student council, I'll tell you." The scene then shifts to the arena, where the night department selection exam is taking place. We then see Thomas selling popcorn and drinks at the event. Observing this, Chelsea remarks that Thomas really seems to be making an effort to boost sales. Eliana smiles and adds that Thomas would have been fine if he hadn't come to Lamine. Our boy looks around and notices that Chloe hasn't arrived. At that moment, Professor Ein steps forward and instructs the students to get ready. He announces the first match, Class 1's Hall Ni versus Class 5's Leo Plav. Professor Ein calls the two students to step forward. Meanwhile, Thomas spots Professor Sedgun and rushes toward him. Surprised, Professor Sedgun inquires about the matter. Being his usual self, Thomas asks the professor if he would like to buy some popcorn and drinks. With a smirk, Professor Sedgun asks if Thomas seriously thought he would buy anything. He jokingly suggests that Thomas ask Professor Harid to purchase it instead. Thomas glances at Celia, and moments later, Celia approaches Professor Sedgun. With excitement, Celia asks if the professor is buying popcorn for the students, adding that the idea sounds delicious. Hearing this, the students begin enthusiastically cheering for Professor Sedgun. Amused and perhaps a bit overwhelmed, Professor Sedgun finally instructs Thomas to distribute the popcorn to all the students. Thomas beams with happiness at the professor's response. The scene then shifts back to the match, where our boy and Hall are standing face to face. Leo comments that he's lucky to be going first, to which Hall responds that he feels underestimated. Hall warns Leo that he's going to regret it. Meanwhile, the gathered students murmur among themselves, speculating about the representative's actual combat skills. One student remarks that Leo is taking 3 majors, which gives him a deeper skill set compared to those with only 1 major. Another student notes that Hall is the 3rd strongest in Class 1, ranking just below Celia and Duran. The tension builds as Hall summons a spear surrounded by a glowing green aura. Internally, Hall thinks to himself, "Leo Plav? That arrogant guy who's always hanging around Celia." Professor Ein steps in to clarify the rules, stating that the winner will be the one who incapacitates their opponent. He emphasizes that Leo and Hall should treat this duel as if it were a real battle. Just as the match is about to begin, our boy suddenly senses an unfamiliar energy emanating from the student's dormitory. His expression shifts. He seems to recognize this energy. The scene transitions to Chloe's room, where she is writing something. Frustration and anger build within her, as the spell she is attempting to create isn't working as intended. Chloe struggles to create the unique magic she has been working on. Frustrated, she angrily throws her book across the room. Determined, she declares that she absolutely cannot afford to fail the upcoming practical exam. Her gaze shifts to the grimoire lying nearby, and she resolutely states that it should be enough to guarantee her victory. The scene returns to the arena, where our boy, momentarily distracted by the energy emanating from the grimoire, leaves an opening. Seizing the opportunity, Hall charges at Leo with confidence, believing he has caught him off guard. However, Leo quickly dodges the spear. Not deterred, Hall casts his spell, Snake's Spear, sending the weapon flying straight toward Leo. Effortlessly, Leo grabs the spear mid-air, blocking Hall's strike. Shocked, Hall struggles to comprehend the kind of power Leo possesses. Leo then pulls the spear toward himself, dragging Hall closer. With a swift movement, Leo lands a punch, sending Hall flying to the other side of the arena. Standing confidently, Leo remarks, "Who said I was careless?" Angered by the taunt, Hall unleashes a new spell called Point Aura. He warns Leo not to act so full of himself, declaring that the real battle begins now. The aura begins to gather in the air, closing in around Leo. Watching this unfold, Hall thinks to himself, Leo may be strong, but his fundamental weaknesses remain unsolved. He can't even use aura. Seeing Hall's new spell, our boy comments, "That's unique." But then, with a surge of power, he releases his Phoenix aura, successfully blocking Hall's aura from reaching him. Observing this, Hall smirks and remarks, Unless it's on Celia's level of flame aura, it'll be hard to push back. In response, our boy intensifies his aura, confidently stating, "It seems you're the one who's being consistently careless." In an instant, our boy closes the distance between himself and Hall. Now standing right in front of Hall, Leo's sudden proximity leaves Hall stunned. The audience is mesmerized by the display, watching intently while munching on their popcorn. Among them, Duran remains silent, his gaze fixed as he carefully analyzes the duel. Meanwhile, Chelsea enthusiastically cheers for Leo, while Celia is left in shock. She wonders, when did Leo manage to boost the intensity of his Phoenix Flame aura to this level? Hall is shocked to see that Leo's aura is on Celia's level. He can't believe that Leo is aiming to master all classes. With a smirk, Hall states that he originally prepared this spell to defeat Celia, but he never imagined he'd have to use it on someone like Leo. Hall then casts his spell, Snake Prison, on Leo. We see Hall's aura capturing our boy, completely immobilizing Leo. Hall glances back at Celia, thinking to himself, what does Celia think of this technique? This was the spell he had specifically prepared to counter Celia's flames. But as Hall looks back, Celia points toward Leo, and to Hall's shock, our boy has freed himself from the spell by intensifying his flames. Stunned by what he's witnessing, Hall grabs his spear and charges forward. However, our boy unsheathes his sword just in time to block Hall's strike, causing Hall to lose his balance and drop his spear. Leo calmly tells Hall, "You can't let your guard down until the flames are out." The professor declares that Leo has won, and Chelsea becomes excited and overjoyed at Leo's victory. Meanwhile, on the ground, Hall walks back, reflecting on the duel. To be this skilled even in practice, it's no wonder Leo is on the same level as Celia, he thinks. At that moment, to Hall's shock, Celia approaches Hall and tells him that he did a great job. She adds that Hall was really cool during the match. Hearing this, Hall blushes and smiles, asking if Celia really thought he was cool. The professor then calls the next student, announcing Eliana Layden from Class 5 and asking her to step forward. Excited, Eliana eagerly steps forward and asks who her opponent will be. The professor reveals that her opponent is Xia from Class 10. Eliana is shocked to hear this, unable to believe that her opponent is one of the top 3 students. As Xia steps forward, she faces Eliana with a calm demeanor and says, "Please go easy on me." Eliana smiles nervously and replies, "You should too." As the match begins, Xia releases her aura and prepares to face Eliana. Eliana, determined, releases her own aura and charges at Xia with her sword. However, to Eliana's surprise, she is unable to break through Xia's protective shield. Instead, she is pushed back and falls to the ground. Seeing this, our boy remarks, "That's got to hurt." The professor declares Xia as the winner. Eliana gets up, brushing herself off, and states with determination, "I didn't back down against Xia." Our boy, observing the match, comments, "The matchup was bad from the start, but if Eliana had stayed calm, it might have gone better." The professor announced that the next match would be between Celia from Class 1 and Duran from Class 1. As both Celia and Duran stepped forward, Celia commented with confidence, "Facing Duran will be fine." Duran, being Duran, remained silent. Our boy remarked, "This match is going to be interesting." As Celia and Duran faced each other, they began to release their auras. The sight of their powerful energy excited the students, who buzzed with anticipation, stating that this match would determine the top knight of Class 1. Without wasting any time, Duran charged at Celia with full force. However, Celia reacted quickly and precisely, blocking Duran's strikes with skill and composure. The students in the audience were amazed, witnessing the incredible abilities of 2 top-level students. Thomas turned to Leo and asked who he thought would win. Leo replied, "Based on appearances, Celia will win." Thomas was shocked to hear this. Our boy, observing the match closely, thought to himself, "The look in Celia's eyes. It seems like she has something hidden up her sleeve to turn things around." Back in the arena, Duran used his aura to close the distance between himself and Celia in an instant. He almost landed a decisive strike, but Celia narrowly dodged it. Spotting an opening, Celia unleashed her Phoenix Flames aura by raising her sword toward the sky. In a stunning display, Celia created a barrier around the arena, leaving the audience in awe. The barrier created by Celia blocked Duran's ability to escape or dodge her strikes. Seeing this, our boy remarked, "Celia is using her head quite well." Shocked, Thomas asked, "What is happening?" Leo explained, "The training hall in the first-year building is pretty small." Celia realized it was hard to keep up with Duran's speed, so she turned the training hall into her stage. Now, inside the blazing dome, Duran's movements will be restricted, and the heat will make it difficult to see clearly, our boy added. Celia was already amazing, but she's gotten even stronger. As Duran tried to assess his next move, Celia took advantage of his distraction. She appeared behind him and, just as she was about to land a strike, Duran sensed her presence. Reacting quickly, he ducked down, narrowly dodging her attack, and immediately released his aura for a counteroffensive. However, as Duran went to strike Celia, he was stunned when she grabbed his sword mid-attack. With a confident smile, Celia said, "Got you?" Then, without hesitation, she headbutted Duran, landing a direct hit. Duran fell to the ground, unable to continue. The professor announced Celia Zerdinger as the winner of the match, and all the students erupted in excitement. As Duran recovered, Celia walked over to him and said teasingly, "Why don't you try building some physical strength too?" Celia then extended her hand to Duran, helping him get back on his feet. Seeing this, the students in the audience commented that Celia and Duran looked lovely together, with some even taking pictures of the moment. Watching this, our boy remarked, "Celia's training really paid off." Thomas cheered alongside him, exclaiming how amazing Celia was. Suddenly, Professor Horrid appeared behind our boy, casually eating popcorn, and stated, "Celia really won." Both Thomas and Leo were surprised to see the professor. Horrid, unfazed, left shortly after, thanking Leo for his earlier explanations. This brought the night department's practical exam to a close. Celia ended with 4 wins and 1 loss. Duran also had 4 wins and 1 loss, and Xia achieved the same record. However, Leo was declared the overall winner of the practical exam, as he had won all 5 of his matches. The scene shifts to a week later, to the classroom, where the students are taking their linguistics written exam. Professor Horrid collects the papers and announces that all the students did well. As he leaves, he remarks, "Don't go and get yourselves expelled. So work hard." Hearing this, one student thinks to himself, "Should I drop out before I get expelled?" After Professor Horrid leaves the classroom, Eliana becomes visibly angered and frustrated, muttering about how all Professor Horrid ever talks about is students getting expelled. Meanwhile, a few students approach Chelsea, asking if she could show them her answers. Chelsea smirks and replies, "Who should I show the answers to first?" At the same time, we see our boy sitting at his desk with his head down. Bella approaches him and asks, "How was the test?" Leo replies that he doesn't think it went too badly. Seeing Leo's expression, Nella smiles and comments, "Leo, who always looks like he has everything under control, can actually make a face like that?" Leo chuckles and asks, "Did I really do that?" Nella tells our boy, "If you're feeling pain anywhere, just let me know. I'll heal you with my magic." Hearing this, Thomas interjects and says, "Nella, my shoulder and back hurt. Could you help me out?" At that moment, Chelsea walks over and lightly hits Thomas, saying, "Now it doesn't hurt, does it?" Then she turns to Leo and asks, "How's your practical summoning practice going? Tade mentioned that you hardly show up at the summoning practice room." Leo replies confidently, "I've been practicing hard, just where no one can see me." Hearing this, Chelsea smirks and says, "That's so like you, Leo." She then asks, "So, what rank are you expecting for the summoning test?" Our boy, brimming with confidence, replies, "Of course, first place." The scene then shifts to the day of the summoning department's practical exam. The announcer, a third-year student named Rumbates, introduces the event. Rumba enthusiastically states, "It's time for the biggest event of the first semester for freshmen. Welcome, everyone, to the summon race." Celia turns to her brother and asks, "Is this really an exam?" Reese replies, The summon race is a tradition in the summoning department. It's really popular, especially since it's a featured event during interdepartmental exchanges. Everyone gets really into it. Meanwhile, in the crowd, a student complains, "Why is everyone making so much noise? It's breaking my focus." The students found this noise annoying. Suddenly, a white-haired woman approached our boy and remarked that she had heard about Leo's exceptional skills during the night department's practical exam. She then inquired if Leo was prepared for the summoning department's practical exam as well. Our boy confidently replied, "Of course." Hearing this, a few students grew frustrated and angry, muttering that Leo hadn't even shown up for practice, not even once. The summoning students grumbled among themselves, asking if Leo was looking down on the summoning department. They taunted Leo, saying that he should just quit, especially since they hadn't seen him make a proper contract with any summon. Tide stepped in, attempting to calm the students, but they quickly turned on him, insisting that he shouldn't defend Leo since they felt Leo had completely disrespected the summoning department. Observing the rising tension, Xia commented, "The atmosphere isn't good. If it's like this before the test." At that moment, a student named Sin Lu stepped forward. Sin addressed Xia, saying, "Since you also have great grades in the night department, you don't have to care much about summoning, right?" Xia immediately dismissed this notion, replying, "That's nonsense." Then Warden stepped forward and stated, "If San is going to speak nonsense and cause a division over something trivial like having one more summon, then Sin shouldn't do it in front of me. Go do it somewhere else." San, angered by Warden's remark, retorted, "Are you feeling guilty, Warden? You barely showed up for taming practice too." With a smirk, Warden replied, "That's because it wasn't worth my time. I'm not a fool who can't even handle a griffin properly." Hearing this, Sun became enraged and attempted to punch Warden, but our boy quickly grabbed Sin's hand. Leo calmly told Sin, "If you fight before the exam, it won't just end with a warning. You'll lose your test eligibility." Frustrated, Sun pulled his hand away and stormed off. Tide then turned to our boy and remarked, "The summoning department's been in a bad mood lately." Leo inquired, "What's going on?" Tide explained, "Summoning is a field where there's a huge gap in skill between majors and minors. But since Xia and you, who aren't summoning majors, are the top students, it's ruffling a lot of feathers." The second-year students in the summoning department once gathered the freshmen together to demonstrate the importance of practice. On top of that, Leo barely attended practice sessions. Our boy thought to himself that it might definitely look like Leo was neglecting his training to others, but in reality, Leo wasn't planning to skip training altogether. Meanwhile, a cloaked figure in the audience observed the scene and muttered, "It finally begins." While glancing at Senator without drawing attention, the figure stepped into a portal and disappeared. On the ground, Sound stood with his aura flaring in anger, thinking to himself that he would crush them all. Rumbates, the announcer, began explaining the rules of the event. First-year students in the summoning department were only allowed to use summoning magic during the test. Even dual-class students were strictly prohibited from using aura or other types of magic. Once the event began, students would need to tame the griffin in front of them, cross the island of summons, and then return after circling the silent lake. Rumba enthusiastically added, "Who will be the star of the midterm summoning department practical exam? We're about to find out." As all the students prepared themselves, the professor encouraged the freshmen not to get nervous and reminded them to focus on what they had practiced. Anyone who couldn't handle the pressure was advised to stay back, but this only made the students more nervous. As the professor started the test, all the students charged forward toward the griffins. However, a few students stayed behind, casting their magic spells and launching attacks toward Leo and Warden. Seeing this, Runba was shocked, unable to understand what was happening with the summoning department students. It became clear that this was premeditated. They had planned to target the class representative, Leo Plav, and the southern top student, Warden. Our boy swiftly blocked the incoming strike, demonstrating his sharp reflexes. Tide, worried about Leo, hesitated for a moment, but our boy calmly told him, "Don't worry about me, just go. This is a test." Hearing this, Tide apologized and moved forward as instructed. Meanwhile, the students in the audience began shouting, urging the summoning department students to compete fairly. Leo, observing the situation, thought to himself that he had always known he and Warden were disliked. However, he hadn't expected the summoning department students to unite and interfere in this way. At the same time, Warden also effortlessly blocked the incoming attack, his skill and composure on full display. Warden then moves forward to the griffin in front of him. As he mounts the griffin, he turns to our boy and comments, "It seems like you're struggling, Leo. Do you need some help?" Leo, with his usual confidence, replies, "No, I'll handle this myself." Satisfied with the response, Warden leaves, flying off toward the next part of the test. Meanwhile, our boy remains behind, the only one still blocked by the spell cast by the summoning department students. Watching this, Chelsea grows increasingly worried and wonders what she should do to help Leo.